And like the people from like Orangetown aren't. Maybe if they're like a bunch of poor
Wait,
people.
no. I do not agree with the basis of this because I feel like saying that justifies, or at least it's closer to the source material. Like it's basically like a slightly.
I don't care. I don't care if it's closer to the source material. All I care is if it's good.
Do you get it, guys?
Yeah.
The rich men are black.
Even how his actor does him is with like a very much like what?
In no world would I ever put them.
Where is Uta?
That is true. Where is Dodgy? Where is Uta?
Who's Uta?
Guys, and welcome to the Social Discharge podcast. I am your host, bruh. I am your host, Tamika Draws, or you can just call me Coco. And joining me today is Mr. Thicc, who so rudely interrupted my cold open. What do you have to say for yourself, you asshole?
I just said yay. Like it's like one of those like crowd cheering FFX. Okay, that's what I was trying to go for.
I don't give a fuck, Keisha.
And Nebz, who so rudely interrupted Mr. Thicc. What do you have to say for yourself?
Fuck him.
No. We got some beef on the social discharge right now.
And then we have Type B personality Aarlon, who doesn't have it in him to interrupt anyone. What do you have to say for yourself, Aarlon? I'm kidding.
I'm here. I'm queer. Get used to it.
So are most of us.
And today,
maybe you are.
Bruh. And today we're gonna be talking about One Piece live action.
His name is Luffy. That's Monkey D. Luffy. King of the pirates. He's made of rubber.
How did that happen?
Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum. His name's Alone's just like a samurai and a Lady. Nami's not shy. Usopp's doing that marksman thing, and Sanji's cooking for the would-be king. Set sail for One Piece. It's the name of the treasure in the Grand Line. Set sail for One Piece.
The series that everyone has been talking about, the live action adaptation of One Piece. The most.
I mean, it's alright.
Is it fair to say that this might be, like, even before it came out, it was the most hyped live action adaptation, like, of anime?
Yeah, because well, people knew about the budget going in, right? There was like the leaks of like showing the ships, and they actually built them and had them in like these giant pools and stuff. So it ain't like Bebop where it's just like another show, you know. It's Game of Thrones budget.
I'm just thinking if there was ever. I know there's other live action adaptations that have come out recently, like there was a live action adaptation of Full Metal Alchemist that came out not too long ago, but I don't remember there being that much hype around. Well, it's on Netflix. I think it came out like in 2018 or some shit. Maybe.
I don't believe it.
And I don't recall there being that much hype around that. Rurouni Kenshin, etc., etc.
Those are like Japanese like productions.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the hype looked like for the Death Note movie, for example. Because I remember people being like, "Well, William Dafoe for Ryoko, the guy's called."
The only good thing about that movie was Willem Dafoe.
What did you just call him? William Dafoe?
William Dafoe, bro.
It's Willem.
Willem.
Yeah,
Dafoe.
it's Willem. But like I don't, because like at least for like One Piece, like sure there was like hype for One Piece, but there wasn't like that much hype because people were still like hesitant, like
yeah.
The hype after the release was way bigger than before release.
People were hyped.
The reason why there wasn't that much hype when it was announced is because most live action anime adaptations suck. The only good one was Diver the Dark Hero.
That was what my first question was going to be, is what were your expectations for this upon the initial announcements? No leaks, no nothing. What were your expectations?
Seething hatred. Fucking bullshit.
Wait, what year was this announced?
Like a bunch of years
It
ago,
was announced
right?
like 6 years ago. It's
Yeah,
been
it was
coming
like
forever.
God damn.
yeah. And I don't remember feeling a particular way when it was like first announced, because like those kind of projects, it's like, oh, it's announced, but like you have no idea where it will go or how it will like end up.
Mm. Well, I feel like the first image that popped into people's heads was like, wait a minute, American adaptation of a Shonen Jump manga? No, it's Dragon Ball Evolution all over again.
Rightfully fucking so.
And
of
then
course
they,
people would think that shit,
and then
because
they
it
looked
sucks.
at Cowboy Bebop and they were like, "Oh no, they're gonna insert woke politics into my fucking already woke shonen battle manga."
Hold on a minute.
Into my already woke shonen battle manga series.
Since fucking when?
What?
What?
Oh, that's a whole other
politics.
That's a whole other conversation.
Don't worry about it.
They didn't make Faye sexy in the Cowboy Bebop show. That's woke. Could have made her sexier.
I hate using the word woke, honestly. Wokeness is fucking dead, and the fact that these fuckers still throw that fucking word around makes me wanna kill myself, honestly.
It's a whole other conversation. It's obviously silly. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Silly?
There is a thing
harmful.
that they're criticizing, but the thing that they're criticizing is not what they think they're criticizing.
The existence of anything that isn't straight white or fucking cis.
All right, we're getting a little sidetracked here. So
yeah.
I guess I want to add on to that question. How did everyone feel when like the first like teasers and trailers were dropping? I guess this is one of more curious. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is
if
your expectations
I didn't even get to answer the first question. Hold on.
Oh, shit.
Okay, sorry. All right. I'm sorry, Aarlon. Go on.
When I first heard about the One Piece adaptation, first off, it was like morbid curiosity, like how One Piece, of all the things they could have chosen to adapt,
the most cartoony, like over the top, like fucking of all shonen battle like I feel like if there's already a live action adaptation of this, but I feel like if there's one manga you make a live action adaptation of, it's something that's not the manga. It's something like fucking Bleach, which is, they have superpowers and that, but it's like still pretty grounded, it's
The Guyver is a manga.
Oh, the Guyver. I thought you said MacGyver.
Yeah.
The Guyver. The one with David Hayter.
I think something that like should be like remembered with these kind of things is that they're like when it's like with Hollywood or these kind of like big productions, it's like there are like a bunch of deals going at any time where it's like agreeing like, oh, this studio might like start working on this like project or this like franchise. But like most of the time it doesn't go anywhere because just like it ends up in development hell or whatever.
I just remembered as you were talking, I just remembered that there were, in fact, two somewhat controversial live action adaptations that were made in the West that came out recently before this. The fucking Battle Angel Alita movie.
By Robert Rodriguez?
And the Ghost, that one, right?
The Ghost in the Shell movie. Nah, I feel like it was sort of like there was a lot of people who liked it, but there were people that were pretty critical of it. But the Ghost in the Shell movie in particular, I know there's a lot of people that hated the fucking Ghost in the Shell movie.
Yeah, I mean,
I never watched it.
They made the main character white.
They made the main character into Scarlett Johansson.
Ghost in the Shell is just like peak, like, oh, we've made a adaptation of the series thing, but it's like completely like misses the point of the original. That's like the usual meme with Ghost in the Shell. I remember with Battle Angel Alita, like people pretty enjoyed that one, and it was also
Coco. For some reason, I don't know how the fuck those Ghost in the Shell people got beat Takeshi to be in it. To Kitano, I don't know how the fuck they got him. And Battle Angel Alita, I never watched it myself, but I heard it was okay, and people were calling it whitewashing, but it takes place in Colorado.
What, the original?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, there you go. But the next question that I had is, if your expectations were initially low, what was the turning point, if any, before the show came out?
When I watched it.
Damn. So even after, so when the trailers were coming out and the sets were getting leaked, you were still like somewhat apprehensive. You were still like,
yes.
Fair enough.
I will say that I think, like, for me, it was probably when they started announcing the castings, like, seeing the boats was pretty cool. The leaks with the boats was good. But when I saw, like, oh shit, like, Emily Rudd literally just looks like Nami, that's when I started to get my mind blown and be like, wait,
she actually looks
might
like
actually be
she
good.
looks more like some out of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, but fair enough.
Well, her wig sucks, but without
I
the
actually, for me, I was like sort of like middle of the road. Like I was trying to meter my expectations, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't getting a little bit hyped as it was coming, as stuff was coming out, because I was like, oh my god, it's like they're actually putting in like a sincere effort. I was like, no, Nate, I'm not gonna let you fucking make me hate this out the gate. This actually looks fucking great. What are you talking about? This actually looks like it'll be like a actually good investment of my time. And when I saw Inaki Godoy, they casted him as Luffy, I was like, what? It's literally East Blue pre-time skip anime Luffy. They didn't whitewash him. They actually kept like East Blue era Luffy character design is my fucking one of my favorite character designs, and he's the spitting image of Monkey D. Luffy. So yeah, when more stuff was coming out, I actually was like sincerely. And then we got like the trailers, and I was like, "Whoa, this actually looks like it's decent. It doesn't look bad at all."
I remember being like, I was like throughout. I was like, it's like, how do you say this? Like, it's very hard to tell like the quality of a show from like just like the trailers or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know, it was also really hard to tell. Like, Cowboy Bebop really sucked compared to like this show, especially. It's not like you could exactly tell via the trailers or whatever how well it was going to be.
Well, the trailers
Yeah.
for Bebop is that I feel like it was kind of in a similar boat where it's like, yeah, they did change some things, but it was in a similar boat to this where like the trailers gave the impression that they were actually trying to make like an accurate adaptation. Like the characters actually looked like, well, some of them did, looked like how they do in the source material. So it's like
I wasn't excited by that either. By that, like, oh, you know, they based the actors on like the nationalities that like Oda gave to all the characters from like the Stride. Like that's neat, but like I know it also kind of feels like could be like geek bait or whatever for like a better word. But it's like, oh, it's like a superficial thing.
well, they didn't cast an actual Brazilian person to play Luffy. They casted someone who looks like.
But he is a Brazilian.
I don't think is he from Brazil? I thought it was like.
Yeah, I think that's what Oda said.
Oh
But
no,
like,
I mean the actor.
The actor is Mexican. The actor
Yeah,
is
the actor is
Mexican.
Mexican.
What? Oh, bro, I'm fucking seething. But like, oh, okay. But like accurate casting choicing or whatever. It's like, yeah, sure, that's cool. That's also like really superficial, and it also could be that they like tested it really accurately, but like the story was still gonna be hot dog water, and they like just gonna like not gonna care really much about like.
I think the important part is that all the actors looked the part. That was like one of the. They were actually going out of their way to get actors who actually looked like the characters.
And that's neat, but it's also kind of superficial in the sense that like you could have like very accurate casting to like make people think like, oh, there's gonna be like such like it's gonna be such an accurate adaptation, it's gonna be so good, and then still like completely ignore like the original, like still make like a Ghost in the Shell equivalent of like One Piece.
For sure, because like that's basically what happened with Cowboy Bebop, right? Like people liked the casting in that too.
Yeah, they got John Cho.
Guys, Nebz is trying to say something. What were you trying to say next?
One thing I liked, you were talking about Zoro earlier, Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Fun. So you know about the actor? That actor is like the fucking son of Sonny fucking Chiba, dude. Sonny Chiba.
Who? I don't even know who that is.
Are you fucking kidding me? Ah! Also, the actor who played Zoro was in the adaptation of Saint Seiya, of all things, with Sean Bean. Ew. I never watched that movie, but that movie sucks. It looks terrible.
But like
Damn.
when the first trailer started coming out, I did get a lot more excited for it because it's just like I will we can certainly talk for sure gonna talk about this later for sure. But just like the production of it, like already via the trailers you could tell like this looks like really like weird and fun. The production is like stays so with like how close it stays to like the animes look. Like you could tell from the trailer like this looks like very like goofy in a fun way. And that definitely made me like more excited. Where it's like, oh, okay, like even if
you didn't get that vibe that they were trying to do that stupid thing that they always do when they fucking try to make a live action adaptation, which is like basically take out everything that made the original appealing in the first place and then make it like we want to quote unquote westernize it, and apparently westernizing something means making something boring as fuck. Like holy shit. And sucking the soul out of it like they did with Dragon Ball Evolution.
in the Ghost in the Shell movie they like paid homage to a lot of stuff from like the original like movie, but the movie still sucks, for example. But like at least at like yeah, I know, and we'll talk about it later, but like the production in this just looks so fun that I was getting more excited, just like in a half ironic way, where it's just like, oh, okay, this is like, even if the story's gonna suck and it's like gonna be like a major like One Piece L, it's still gonna be like a fun thing to watch, to see just to see like the production of it. So that's when I started getting more like hyped for it.
Yeah, I think at that point I was kind of like, I could see it going either way. And it's funny because I remember having a conversation with Coco about this like a year ago where I think we agreed that, man, like with how shit the One Piece anime is these days, it could be that if this show is good, it becomes the best way to watch One Piece, which, is a very ironic take, knowing how Coco feels about the show now.
I remember that conversation because, yeah, the pacing of the anime is fucking terrible, and the a lot of people say
it's not bad in the beginning, right?
No, it's not bad in the beginning. Contrary to what some people might say,
it's still kind of slow in the beginning, but it gets
I think it's fine. I think it starts getting bad once you get to like Alabasta. That's when I really started feeling the fucking pacing. Like holy shit, what the fuck's going on? But that's because early on they were still doing like filler arcs instead of the tried and true Dragon Ball Z method of dragging canon shit out for as much as you possibly can. But yeah, no, I remember that. I was like, yeah, this could actually be a good alternative to watching the anime. Because the pacing would be way faster. Because they, cut out a lot of the. Well, it's not so much cutting out anything because in the anime they added stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not so much cutting in stuff. It's more like the difference between Flick's piece and the anime is that they wouldn't be adding in extra shit to like pad out the runtime of the show. Especially given the fact that like it's already like 8 episodes. It's like pretty short the first season. Yeah, we will dive into that. But my next question was, what do you think was the best handled arc in this series? I think my favorite arc, that might be a bit hard for you, Nebz, because you didn't finish. You only watched the first episode, right? I think for me, the best handled arc in this was probably, my favorite two were Arlong Park and Baratier, because
I would agree on both counts.
Yeah, because Baratier made me feel something, man. It actually caused my eyes to water a little bit at the end when Sanji was saying goodbye to fucking Zeph. And incidentally, when I first watched One Piece, that was also the arc that fucking hell, my eyes are watering right now just thinking about it.
Zeph and Sanji's actors were both really good.
Yes, I love Sanji in this.
They were so good. But like I was gonna say, incidentally, in the anime, Baratier was also the first arc that made me feel something in the anime too. And yeah, it's actually funny because it was right around Baratier that I started doubting Flick's piece, which we'll probably go into as we go further into the podcast. But when I was like, they better not fucking cut out that scene where they're fucking crying and saying goodbye to each other, and they fucking didn't. It was there. It was there. And well, I was about to say it made me fucking bawl my eyes out, but might be a bit of an exaggeration. It made me fucking, it made me fucking tear up. It was so good. And you know what? On the subject of like cut content, there's a few things that I'm a bit like not a fan of the fact that they cut, but I'm not really mad at the fact that they cut out the fucking Don Krieg Luffy fight. I don't really care about Don Krieg. And
Don Krieg has always been an underwhelming villain. So
I enjoy it for what it is when I'm reading the manga and watching the anime, but I liked that instead of that, they had Arlong show up. And like it was kind of interesting how they approached it, because they basically had round one of Luffy versus Arlong happen on Barati, like Luffy getting fucking his ass kicked by Arlong and then being dropped into the water and Sanji saving him. That happens at Arlong Park, but instead they like have it happen here at Barati. I thought that was kind of neat. A way of setting up that how strong Arlong was before, and then actually having there be a gap between round one and round two.
I would definitely say that like Baratre was also my favorite adaptation in this. I didn't read. I actually have one of the One Piece novels in my home. I remember reading from like the beginning till like around like Baratre. I think just before Arlen, or like no, I think it has like Uso or like Uso. I don't remember.
What, do you have the 3-in-1 volume thingy?
Yeah, but it's like the second one.
Okay.
I don't remember much Arlong. I remember all the stuff before Arlong. Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed Bartray the most. Also because they like the volume I have doesn't include like the Mihawk fight, but I just remember just like reading the Mihawk fight, thinking that's the most like hype shit ever. And I'm happy that they like did that fight like justice very very well in the so yeah, for me it's Bartray too.
I remember that fight being pretty good. The only thing I don't like about that was the performance of the actor when declaring that he'll never.
Man,
What?
Zoro is like the one miscast. He is so he's not like Zoro, and he's not a very good actor.
I don't think it's the actor. I think it's the direction, which is just like my overall problem with like most of the acting in this.
What do you think sucks from that scene?
Well, in the original version of that scene, when Zoro gets his ass kicked by Mihawk, he's like fucking bawling his ass out and has like this very passionate declaration of like, "I will never lose again. Are you okay with that, Captain?" And like, it's this
Well, he
really
does that in the show.
Well, he does it, but I feel like it's nowhere near as
I'm telling you, it's the actor, because like compare it to like how Emily Rudd is acting in Arlong Park.
Well, it's actually funny because I was about to say I don't think Emily Rudd's performance was particularly that great either until Arlong Park.
Yeah.
Where she was actually allowed to emote. Because that's like my biggest problem, particularly with the actors for Zoro. I was about to say Zolo, fucking hell. For Zoro and Nami, is that they feel like planks of wood, like compared to like their original. I wouldn't say they have no personality at all, because there's
missing
definitely
her original swagger.
Well, she's like
Nami had swagger to her.
I don't mind as much as Zoro. He's definitely a bit different character compared to the original, but at least he's going for a very like specific, just like he's kind of the anime Sasuke edgy boy. From,
man, it's actually funny that you brought up Sasuke, because that's exactly what I was thinking. He gives me more Sasuke vibes than fucking Zoro. This brooding emo, like takes himself very seriously kind of guy.
Yeah, you can get bothered by that, which I can understand that that's the thing they aimed for. But at least I feel like okay, at least that's like the thing he's going, and he does that pretty well. He does the role pretty well. He's like a good emo short fighting boy in the Straw Hat.
I mean, if we're talking about how he's good specifically, like he portrays that particular personality fine. But in terms of like being Zoro, it's like I don't know. It's weird that they're like having Zoro be like the quiet, brooding type. It's like Zoro is I don't know.
Yeah.
I know Zoro can be serious, but I feel like Zoro's more of the short tempered, kind of dumb, loud. You know, he engages in the antics. He's not like I mean, sometimes he does, but he engages in the antics that the Straw Hats are up to. You know,
I feel like they kind of took Zoro's character from like way later One Piece when he gets like more stoic and like depressed after I guess it's after his fight with Mihawk that he gets like way more stoic, but they just from the beginning they were like, oh yeah, he's like the quiet, edgy one.
It's actually funny that you say that because one of the examples that I had on how I feel like they sort of toned down the emotional range of Zoro and had him just sort of be like stoic as you put it is I was thinking about the scene from Orange Town where like Luffy being the dumbass that he is, he like reveals to the town that they're pirates and he like starts laughing his ass off, you know. He's like, haha, Luffy, you fucking funny guy, haha, you're so fucking stupid. And you know, I was thinking, you know what? I was inclined to agree that like especially post time skip, like Zoro becomes like a more serious guy. But it's actually funny because the more I think about it, the more I don't actually think that is true. Because I like saw clips from like the Wano anime where like you know, he's engaging in banter. He's been a funny man. He's being Zorro. He not even like post time skip, but like even like Skypiea. There's pretty funny scenes pre time skip where he's doing like the fucking swinging on vines and being like a Tarzan man. You know,
like it's like something that they do with Nami, where they also made her way more like one note and more like shielded from the rest.
Yeah, but that's basically what I'm getting at. Is I don't think there was really ever a time where like they made Zoro too serious as a character outside of moments where it actually was like a serious moment where it was obviously necessary for him to be serious. And like in the case of Nami, they also made her kind of serious. They took away like in the original, she's got like this sort of cheeky vibe. She's also kind of short tempered and loud, you know, and bantering.
She's like the straight woman, but she isn't like this of I guess emotionally. That she's emotionally sheltered in the original.
It's actually funny because with Nami, I actually thought that in the last episode when they were like setting sail for the Grand Line, like towards the end, it actually felt like there was a bit more life in her performance. And I was thinking, oh, was the approach to Nami here, was that like the reason why she was like so like serious the whole time is because of the whole like Aarlon thing hovering over her, and now that that's been resolved, maybe in season 2 she's gonna start feeling more like Nami. Is that the idea here? I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but if she is going to be more character accurate in the next season, that would be nice.
I think that because a lot of like there are like emotional moments where it's like, oh, now Zoro and Nami are both like laughing, just like being goofy or whatever. But those are very particular, like, oh, there's kind of like a moment like vulnerability for them. So like I'm not sure if like they will make her like actual normal Nami in the next season. I will definitely say though, one thing that I feel this show kind of generally like blunders on like all levels is that how like because of the changes with Nami and Zoro, their group dynamic in the beginning is like super like fucked because it's just like Luffy doing his thing and he's like being goofy, and then Nami and Zoro both like constantly look at him and just roll their eyes, and that's like all of the character dynamic in like beginning of the show because with like the how they play with each other, Nami and Zoro both like exist in the exact same space, which is like I thought was like kind of really annoying at the beginning. Which gets a bit better with Usopp, and then really quickly after it gets Sanji, also makes it a lot better. Yeah. So I just that's like one thing where I think like, oh, that's kind of that I'm not sure if they like were aiming going for something. It kind of fell flat.
All right, I guess my next question would be, what do you think was the arc that was handled the worst in this?
Definitely the Usopp arc.
Yeah, definitely Usopp.
What, Syrup Village?
Well, what were your general thoughts on it, Nebz? Because I feel like we haven't really heard what you actually think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's alright from what I watched. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but I'll live with it.
Did this make you want to watch like more, for example?
Not really.
Does it make you curious for like the One Piece, the like manga or whatever, or not at all?
Does it make you curious for the source material?
Yeah.
Which, in my humble opinion, is its job.
It makes me curious for the source material. I said it makes me curious for the source material. Sorta.
Then job done. Worst handled arc. You guys say Syrup Village? Go on, Aarlon.
Well, it's really a shame because like I get why they changed Syrup Village, because I do feel like of all the arcs they adapted, that was probably the most in need of a little bit of streamlining, because it was like it felt very long to me in the manga and anime. Once they actually like the way they did it, they just managed to break like pretty much everything that worked about Syrup Village.
Yeah.
And the stuff they added, like the whole horror, like slasher element or whatever,
it's actually funny.
Really land for me.
Because for me, I feel like if you ignore the fact that like what Kuro is doing literally makes no fucking sense, I actually kind of liked that sequence. I mentioned in my fucking document that I wrote at like 5 a.m. after I finished watching it that it reminded me of Resident Evil, them in like the mansion and them like running away from Kuro. It's like running away from fucking Mr. X, and well, I guess you're not in a mansion in that game. You're running. It's a police station, but you get the point.
Yeah, it's like a horror slasher feel to it.
I thought it was kind of neat. It kind of reminds me. It's like a slightly spookier version of like when Kaya is running away from Django, who, by the way, is cut from this.
I can't believe they cut my boy Django.
Even though we know for a fact that they did cast an actor, there is a bounty poster for him, and a lot of people are expecting him to be in this, and he's weirdly not. So I don't know if that just means they have plans for him later on, or if they just decided to cut him out.
I definitely agree that like I also I don't remember it that well, but I can like kind of recall it being really long in the manga too. But I definitely hoped that like they at least would have kept the element of it being like a pirate invasion, because there's like Usopp's whole arc is like, oh, he keeps warning people for pirate.
That makes no fucking sense.
Wait, in what way?
The thing is that both of these versions make no sense, because in the original manga, Kuro's plan is to slowly poison Kaya until she dies, and have Django hypnotize Kaya into like putting him in her will so that he inherits all her riches. And he wants like a quiet and peaceful life. He doesn't want to be a pirate anymore. But then he like brings his pirate crew to Syrup Village, which seems very counterproductive to his plan. He's planning, like, it basically implies that he's planning on raiding Syrup Village, because the plan was that he was going to have them, like, raid Kaya's mansion or some shit, and he gets, like, really pissed off that they don't show up, which is why he starts, like, fucking killing all of them. And, like, this version, the Netflix version, actually makes a tiny bit more sense in that he's not planning, like, it fits more with his motivations. He's trying to keep everything like on the down low. Locks up the mansion, etc. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it to get out there. What his plan is.
Sense is that he's like, I'm going to slowly poison her over time, and then the night she transfers it over to me, I'm just going to hit her with a giant dose of poison, and or just kill her.
Well, he was literally like planning on like shanking her with his fucking claws, and it makes no sense. I feel like the only reason why they did that is to create a conflict, like so that it would be like obvious what Kuro's motivations are and to start a fight.
I feel like they have a lot of that where they make something not make as much sense because they want to make it like more conflict, more intense.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's basically the issue with the original version too, right? Is like the pirate he has his whole crew show up to like raid Syrup Village, so that they can
Yeah,
have
I'm
like
just
this
saying it's kind of a
climactic.
pattern in the Netflix show.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can kind of get then that like plot wise or like the plot that like Kuro's coming in with doesn't really make a lot of sense. But like I do feel like if you like sure okay like that part about does make sense, but it does like make more thematic sense that like Usopp kind of constantly cries wolf about pirates coming in, and then the pirates do come in, and then he has to like overcome his like cowardice and like defend the entire village against like this like invasion, which I do think is like a very important part of like Usopp's like character arc you got going on there. And I do wish they at least get that in a little bit more.
Pirates coming represents that I want my dad to come.
Yeah, it's so weird. Okay, so this is a little bit one of the things that trigger me slightly because like I correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think that in the original Usopp going around screaming, "Oh, the pirates are coming," had anything to do with him like hoping that his dad would be coming in the original. And that's like an addition of the Netflix version. And it's so weird because I saw some people being like, "Oh man, that's always why Usopp was like that." And like, no.
I mean, you could read it as subtext, maybe, but the
What?
fact that they just outright said it was so silly.
What reason did they give in the manga?
There is no reason. He just does that for fun. He's a
His
troll.
his reason is that the town is like a boring, shitty town. Is like I'm gonna make these people's lives interesting.
And it actually, this is one thing that they cut out. It actually kind of works because at the end of the arc, when Usopp, like towards the end of the arc, I think this was during the part where he's fighting, like the townspeople, as much as they like shit on Usopp for doing that, they do kind of look forward to it. And so when he's gone, they actually notice his absence, and they're like, "Wait, but I was like actually kind of like that actually did bring some life to the town. That actually was like, you know, that darn Usopp. I hate him, but I also like kind of love him," which is like a thing that they cut out in this. I feel like that's a thing that they cut out in a lot of the arcs in this is like the involvement of background characters, the characters who actually live in the places that they go to, which kind of brings me to what I think is the worst handled arc in this, but we'll get to that in a second. My question was, what did you guys think of the involvement of the Marines and Kobe and Helmeppo in Syrup Village? Did you think that was a neat addition?
One thing real quick I want to say about the Usopp thing with like his backstory or like his like backstory like scene is that it was so fucking cold of his mom to hear like I keep telling people the pirates are coming back because dad needs to come back to like because then you will feel better. And she's just like okay and just dies on the spot.
And then she just dies.
That was so fucking cold of her. Like damn.
That's pretty dark. That is pretty dark.
So like I don't know, this is like why Usopp's like arc is like the dumbest because that shit is just so kind of fucked up his like character thing there.
I don't know. The thing that made me find kind of like I don't want to get all prequel hater the way people did with Jake Lloyd, because at the end of the day, it is just a kid. But the thing that made it difficult for me to get invested in that flashback sequence was the fact that the person that, like, the kid that they cast to act as Kid Usopp was not a very good actor.
No. Like, not that like kid characters have to be great, but like I feel that like like Nami's kid character or like Sanji's kid character were like way better at the job than Usopp's kid character.
Zoro's kid character was definitely the worst though. His kid actor was so bad.
I actually want to say Usopp is still worse than them.
It was pretty bad. Zoro's kid actor. That the way he asked for the sword and like promised to like I hated it so much.
Can I please have your sword?
Just comparing it to the manga, he's like bawling his eyes out. He's like, "With this sword, I will pledge to become the strongest swordsman." Although I kind of got the vibe that, like, I mean, some people might try to defend it by saying, well, in the manga, he's clearly what the fuck, younger than he's supposed to be in Flixpiece. Like, in Flixpiece, he's like a teenager, and the manga is probably like 10. So it makes sense for him to be like...
The way he asks it is literally like he's asking his parents to let him see our movie. It's like, please, can I please have the sword?
It feels like a case of terrible direction, but also, yeah.
It's just terrible child actors. You can't blame everything on the direction.
Well, no, you absolutely can, because I feel that, like, there's one thing I can, like, give, like, Coco at least, that, like, this show definitely goes out of its way to, like, be more, like, grounded, I guess, in, like, the acting. Like, you would never get, like, a big, like, crying scene, like, in the manga, like, a big, like, emotional moment, because this show tries to be way more restrained of, like, the emotion it does.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's definitely a directing thing. But, like, sure, it was not, like, a great child actor. I can definitely give that.
That's one of the reasons why, like, the scenes in, like, the Baratier scene and, like, even Emily Rudd in Arlong Park, those two performances in particular, stood out so much to me, because they actually did, like, let them, like, fully show their emotions when they were crying in a way that we hadn't.
I guess I have one more comment about Usopp's arcs. And that's the way that I did, like, Zoro's, like, backstory in that arc, because it kind of feels that how, like, the puzzle piece was laid out, it would make the more sense, like, pacing wise, to put this, like, little, like, arc there, or, like, little, like, backstory, like, episode there. But, like, it makes no sense for why Zoro would suddenly, like, because that's kind of how it's framed, to suddenly, like, start recalling his, like, tragic, like, childhood trauma, character defining moment, when he's just, like, crawling out of a, like, well, because he just got, like, thrown in.
You know, he's having a near-death experience.
I mean, but he's just crawling out of it. Like, why? What does have to do?
He nearly died, though.
I mean, did he get stabbed from behind? Am I remembering that correctly?
Sure, but no, he just got, like...
I mean, they thought he was dead. That's why they threw him in the well.
They hit him in the back of the back of his head with a bottle and knocked him out.
Like, Luffy's, like, childhood since, like, okay, it's like the first episode, and he's, like, just starting his, like, adventure as, like, the Pirate King or whatever. Like, sure, Cow makes sense, Sanji's too, with, like, him still being around the restaurant. But, like, I don't know, but, like, Zoro is just, like, if they, like, did that scene, like, an episode later with Mihawk, it would have made more sense, right? Like, oh,
actually, I think that's when I was about to ask, when did they do it in the original? But I think it was around the battle with Mihawk that they did that.
Like, that makes me more sense. Like, oh, I'm recalling the promise I made about becoming this best swordsman while I'm trying to beat the best swordsman. But, like, in the show, it's just like, oh, he's recalling his, like, promise to be the best swordsman.
They didn't have room for it later, so they were like, oh, we'll just put it here.
Wouldn't it have made perfect sense to have him, like, have that flashback while he was unconscious after he got his ass handed to him? Like, it's almost
but, like, besides, like, where that, like, makes logical sense for the character, it just doesn't make, like, thematic sense. Like, why, in what way does this have to do with anything else that's, like, going on in this scene, or, like, in the thing? So yeah, that's
Did you guys think the additions of the Marines in this arc, or just them having more of a presence in East Blue than they did in the original, did you think that was a good change? Like in Syrup Village and just...
I thought that was the best thing that this show did. It just felt like a great addition. Like, yeah, it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, I haven't seen... Yeah, I haven't, again, not read a lot of the manga. Definitely not with a lot of the, like, how, like, the Marines become relevant later on. I actually didn't know about Garp till, like, this show, actually. But, like, yeah, it, like, I know they...
When do they reveal... Arlon, do you know... Arlon, do you know when they reveal Garp in the original?
It's, like, way later on.
I know they show him in cover chapters, but I don't think they reveal...
Like, they just run into him on the sea.
But, like, I do know that, like, the whole, like, Marine, like, thing becomes very important with, like, how they, like, interact with, like, the Straw Hat stuff. And I do like that, like, Garp is, like, introduced earlier, in the sense that, like, oh, he kind of has this, like, mainstay antagonistic, like, figure in him that is also his, like, grandfather that's, like, on the opposite side, like, idealism wise, which is like it's definitely, like, a cool thing from One Piece that I understand, like, oh, why they wanted to have this, like, in earlier, because it's just very strong, like, storytelling. And it just, like, kind of yeah, so like I think it makes sense, and it's like cool that like Kobe around.
I do like the implication with Garp that it's also about he actually is somewhat motivated by wanting what's best for Luffy, as opposed to just sort of being like, "This is how I did things, therefore you have to do the same," like in the original.
Yeah, I thought it was a great climax to have like the reveal of like, oh yeah, I knew, I was just testing you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that one. About him just sort of being like, "Yeah, I guess you are a pirate now." I mean, they had to resolve it somehow, so.
Yeah, because does that conflict get resolved too in like the manga in that way, or?
No, in the manga, spoilers, I guess. In the in the manga, Luffy and Garp don't even like really. I don't think we see them meet until Water 7, right? Like, and that's when it's revealed that he is in fact Luffy's grandpa. And I think that's
Yeah, I
also when
mean, he just shows up and he's like, "Yep,
yeah.
I'm a marine, and I wish you weren't a pirate, Luffy." And then they eat.
The climax here is basically an adaptation of what happens at the end of Water 7. I believe including the part where they fight and Luffy like bounces back the fucking cannonball at his ship. I think that's also from
Yeah.
Water 7, which kind of makes me wonder how they're going to approach that since they took that and put that here.
I'm also curious about what they're gonna do with like his like character now. His plot is kind of resolved.
And as far as them like fighting, they don't fight until Marineford, and it's not really a fight. It's more like Garp is like, "Yeah, I'm a marine, you're a pirate, so I guess we're gonna have to fight." But at the same time, he can't actually bring himself to like fight Luffy. So it's like, so then he sort of just lets Luffy curb stomp it. But like, even though he could have actually easily kicked his ass. And that's one thing I like about this. I don't know why I thought they would do this. I feel like this kind of shows how low my expectations had gotten by this point. But like, I was like, if they have Luffy fucking kick Garp's ass, I'm gonna be pissed.
I was a little bit scared about that too, honestly.
Yeah, because Garp is like one of the most powerful characters to this day in the series. Even though he just got his ass kicked. But
And besides the like power level stuff, I think it also just works better as like an emotional arc to have like the grandfather figure kind of like figure out how to like accept his like grandson's dreams.
I'm just really glad they didn't have like it's not even just that Luffy didn't beat him, it's the fact that Luffy had no chance. Like literally none. And I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious what they're gonna do because I do think that's a very strong dynamic to have this kind of like rival figure, but it's like his grandpa, and I know that's really cool. That's a cool thing.
Oh, actually, I was about to say I don't think Garp's gonna be in the next season, but actually, I think he probably will be because his like group, like his little battalion, for the lack of a better word, are investigating Baroque works, which is part of the next season because they're going to be doing Alabaster next. So I guess he probably will be present in the next arc.
Yeah, I guess they're just trying to make like Kobe a main guy now.
Honestly, I feel like I don't mind that, to be honest, because it's actually kind of weird how little screen presence. It's really weird how little screen presence Kobe doesn't have. Like outside of like maybe the filler training arc, his appearance in Water 7, and then Marineford, and then he doesn't appear at all again until like the fucking Boa Hancock thingy, if I'm remembering correctly. It's like, damn.
From what I understand, how the story like later moves on is that like the Marines kind of like start becoming a more like antagonistic, like the main antagonist, and they would kind of become like also the main like ideological like opponent to like Luffy.
Yeah, the world government.
Yeah.
The world government.
Yeah. So like it's like I think it makes a lot of sense like pacing wise to have them actually be like introduced like earlier, make them like a bigger thing earlier, and then also to have like a character like Kobe in the middle of it to kind of explore these kind of like contradictions. Because there are plenty of scenes with him and Garp. Garp being like, yeah, I could have become like a bigger, like higher ranked person, but then I'll have to start doing things that I don't want because at the end of the day, just start becoming like a pawn for like the Marine Corps or whatever.
That is one thing they go into a lot in the original. Like, you have guys like Fujitora, the blind guy. He's like a guy. Is he a vice admiral? I think he is. And like, yeah, he'll like do his job, but then he won't like let his job get in the way of his personal morals. He will like he will just straight up like tell. Is it Kizaru? I always get the main three admirals. Yeah, Akainu. He just like straight up tells Akainu like, yeah, I think what we're doing here is wrong, and therefore I'm not gonna do it the way you want me to. And like they'll get mad at him, but also like weirdly won't fire him or like kill him. But like, yeah,
it's like cool. They're already like exploring those like contradictions within like being a marine.
I like the fact that the world of One Piece is not like super black and white, and that's like one thing that I mean, I wouldn't say it's totally lacking in Flick's piece, but on the subject of like mishandled arcs, I don't know how I felt about them handling the first arc, because I felt like the first arc was the one that like really establishes that it's not so simple as, oh well, I mean, it was never as simple as Pirates Good, because there's plenty of bad pirates even from the beginning, but it's also not as simple as Marine good or bad. And they like establish that by like having all these Marines be like, yeah, actually we hated Morgan and we're like really glad that you came and like saved our town from this asshole. And then they like salute Zoro and Luffy as they leave the fucking Shells town. And I didn't like the fact that they cut that. I feel like that was a pretty important way of communicating the fact. I didn't like the fact that they just had Luffy. That scene communicated Marine morally neutral as pirates morally neutral. And I didn't
I mean,
I didn't like
he says like there's good Marines.
Well, yeah, but that's what I was getting at.
Marines,
That's
and
what I was
he'll be a
getting at
good
is I
Marine.
don't like the fact that they just have Luffy say that. That's like a classic mistake of showing and not telling.
Yeah, but I don't really agree with this in the sense that like sure maybe they do it like quicker in like the original, but like the entire like arc with Kobe and with Garp is to like showcase that, right? Because like the Marines are like the antagonistic force towards like Luffy, and like even Garp says like, oh, you can't be like, it's really hard to be like a good Marine, but you still have like Cody who like is a good Marine and is trying his best to do that. Like it's definitely like not done in the same way, but I feel that like throughout the whole season, they definitely are like spending a lot of time being like, hey, this stuff is kind of like not totally like black and white or whatever.
I mean, I do agree with that it's not like totally absent.
Well, not totally absent. They do spend a lot of time on it. Just that like it spreads more throughout the entire show instead of like the very beginning immediately.
I guess.
Like I don't know, and also stuff like, oh hey, Mihawk is like a guy we got on our paycheck, even though he's just straight up a pirate.
Yeah.
And then it's good. It's all focused on Cody because he's like the moral center of like, hey, this guy is still going to like become like a cool like Marine guy, even though the whole like system is kind of like yeah, I don't know. I think they didn't like undercut that necessarily.
Did anyone else notice that I really don't think they said Helmeppo's name in the whole show?
Who's Helmeppo?
He's the guy with the bowl cut.
The bowl cut? Oh!
He's Kobe's friend.
I feel like that more or less proves your point, Usopp. The fact that wait, what? I just called you Usopp. What the fuck? I think that more or less proves your point. I think that more or less proves your point, Aarlon. That fucking they don't say his fucking name.
You're like Aarlon.
Despite the fact that he is a prominent character in this, like he's by Kobe the entire time.
He's way more important in this than he ever was in the anime.
Yeah. I guess maybe they said his name in like first episode, like real quick, like one time.
I don't think they did. I've seen this twice now, and I was watching for it. I don't think they did.
Okay, then they straight up did it because I certainly didn't after.
That's fucking weird.
That's funny.
But now, my opinion on the worst handled arc in this by far, Syrup Village might actually be a close second, even though I didn't mind it too much until Aarlon like pointed out to me that like Kuro's plan, like his approach, was like kind of weird. I think for me, by far the worst handled arc in this was Orange Town, and I know a lot of people liked that arc the way it was handled in this. I know a lot of people really liked. Is it Jeff Ward? His performance as Buggy, which was pretty good.
It was great.
I will not deny that at all. His performance as Buggy was fucking amazing. But this was not Orange Town. This was Buggy's tent, and we get Orange Town for like 10 seconds when Nami actually leaves the tent and then immediately runs back in. And yeah, I just didn't like the approach to this at all. I feel like they cut out some stuff, and they like for example the themes. They tried to keep the themes present a little bit. We're gonna like have Luffy. We're gonna show that Luffy like cares about his straw hat and considers it his personal treasure. But then like everything else that like conveys the message and the theme of Orange Town is just cut out. The fucking like the background characters literally become background characters. Literally, like they were actually like supporting characters in the original arc, but calling them background characters is kind of like downplaying it. But here, they actually are background characters. Like I didn't even notice the fucking mayor was here until they like did a close up on him. Yeah, I didn't even notice Shushu was. I didn't know that Shushu was there at all until someone was like, "Actually, Shushu is there," and I was like, "What?"
And that's one thing I remember from reading Orange Town back when I read the manga, like his little story.
Because the original arc is so good. It's so good. And I'm not just saying that because
I just don't really like Orange Town very much.
And I'm not just saying that because it's the arc that made me realize the he 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 hoi meme.
The dog is like such a like making you feel bad for a dog is the sadness equivalent of a jump scare. So they immediately lose major points with me for doing that.
Yeah, but I feel like considering how they get you invested in most of the arcs in this usually involves using a woman, which if you ask me is also the sadness equivalent of a jump scare. I feel like if you're gonna say that about Shushu, you might as well say that about the entire series.
And like, it's not just that Shushu's a dog; it's also he was like a very loyal dog. Like I don't know, I feel like his storyline was fun now, or like his little story was fun.
Yeah, it was good. Great. It's like protecting the pet store.
It made me roll my eyes. I never liked Orange Town.
And the mayor in his town, he's like, I'm gonna go and fight Buggy. I'm gonna protect this town because this town is my treasure. And they cut that out. They cut out the scene where like Luffy like knocks the mayor out and is like, yeah, he's getting in the fucking way. We don't want him to get hurt. It really shows like I don't know the word for it, but I feel like I wouldn't say it's important, but it's funny and it does sort of communicate something about Luffy as a character, how he would just do whatever, But
and also the like moment with like Luffy's head getting like harmed or whatever. Like that's like sure that moment is there in this arc or like in the show, but like it's recontextualized like totally like thematically, because here it's just mostly like reaffirming like Luffy's like will to like chase like Shang's dream of like becoming like the Pirate King or whatever,
becoming the Pirate King.
And it's not necessary about like whether he like cares about the.
It's not about it's not. I feel like the theme of like what is a person's treasure is subjective, and like it's in the eye of the beholder, and the person places value on that. Is just like almost completely absent from this from this art.
Whether I like am bothered that they skipped it, it's like not really, because like sure like they skipped like the entire kind of like thematic part of this like this like art. like that whole arc in the manga was never really like that relevant for like the grander picture. I feel like it's kind of a like whatever arc. Like not that it's bad, because even I don't remember like most of it except the little dog story. Like I still like remember stuff like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. Like it's a good showcase of like Oda's like kind of like emotional like storytelling on like hooking you.
Oh man, the ending. I recently read that arc again because I have the 3-in-1 volume that happens to feature that arc. And the ending of that arc is so fucking good. It's like Luffy, like they just beat Buggy, and like the townspeople show up because they're like, yeah, we fucking love our town and we love our mayor. The mayor hasn't been like back in so long. It's fucking community. It's great. And they're like, we need to go and fight the pirates because they probably hurt our mayor. And then they like see that like the Buggy pirates have been defeated or whatever, and they see their mayor's knocked out, and they're like, did you guys do this? And Luffy's like, yeah, actually I did, and also we're pirates, and they like chase them out of town, and then you get like Shushu being like barking at them, at the townspeople, and protecting the Straw Hats as they leave, and they're like, why are you protecting them? And then, and then you have like the mayor comes to, and the mayor's like, no, I'm the only people who gets to roast the shit out of those young whippersnappers, and also you guys are fucking awesome. And he's like yelling, and he's like, thank you so much, I appreciate everything that you've done. And it's this emotional scene, and it's so fucking good. Oh, and not to mention that Zoro actually laughs, which he does not do in this. He cracks a smile, but he never laughs. But it's so fucking good.
Yeah, I like agree that like it's probably good, but like it's mostly like irrelevant to like the larger story of like One Piece, and like this show is already like pretty like feels heavily like truncated and heavily feels like sometimes fighting with like the runtime it has versus like the things it wants to portray. So like I totally like get that they made this episode mostly just like the Boogie episode, which I think makes sense. As in like that Boogie is like a reoccurring character. I'm sure that if it wasn't for Boogie, they would have cut this out entirely, even if like all of the rest of the stuff you described is still there.
But you know what? I shouldn't be that triggered, because if I want that, I can just go and fucking watch the anime, which everyone should do.
Yeah, I just think part of your issue with this show is just that you're hyper fixating on like every difference. Like, well, I liked this in the manga and they cut this, and I liked this and they cut that.
It's not just
and like
it's not just that they cut. It's that for me, like, because I feel like I kind of disagree with you, Mr. Thicc, when you say that like the theme of Orange Town is not relevant to One Piece as a series.
Let me like make sure that like sure like the theme of like what do you value, what is your like thing that you value in your life, what is your like dream, it's like sure it's like, that's like important, but like it's not that's like a kind of like a cornerstone that's like being put late at that moment, and if you take that out, that thing whole like falls apart. It's you can skip Orange Town and it will probably be fine. Like
they'll
you're not gonna
probably
like
find like other ways to like add that in later seasons. But like for me, it's not just a matter of like, oh, they cut something, therefore I don't. Because if it was a matter of me just them cutting out things that I like, I could easily be like, well, I don't like yeah, I said I don't really care about the Don Krieg fight, but there actually are things that happen in the Don Krieg fight that I do care about, like Luffy parting words of wisdom to Sanji about how like fucking like throwing and wasting your life away is no way to pay a debt. Like, yeah, that scene is there with between Zeph and Sanji in Baratie, but I as always I feel like the original reigns supreme in this regard, because it's like in the middle of this high stakes battle where like Sanji is literally throwing himself face first into danger. He's prioritizing protecting the Baratie over his own life, and Luffy's like, that's not like, yeah, like, in fact, I mean, yeah, it would have been neat if that was in Flick's piece, but yeah, it's not just a matter of like,
But like, what makes this then different then? What's different about this then?
Well, actually, you know what I was gonna say. I feel like this has like thematically has more relevance to the whole One Piece series. But honestly, now that I think about it, I feel like even the original, even the Baratie arc, still has some relevance to
Yeah,
One Piece in the series because I think of like Robin's arc, which kind of has a similar thing going on, not quite the same, but you know. And then I think of like Whole Cake, you know, it brings that up a lot, and you know,
I think what you should be asking yourself is like, okay, is this relevant to like One Piece? Like, yeah, sure. And like you said yourself, there are a bunch of stuff that they could, which is like
well, when you say
relevant to like
relevant, relevant in
yeah.
what sense? Do you mean like relevant in terms of the story?
Let me. Yeah, I was about to explain that. I was about to explain that. So
Hmm.
I'm sure that like here they like cut something which is relevant to the themes, and what you said
Hmm.
yourself, they cut out a lot, also kind of like smaller stuff which also are like relevant to the themes. But I think what like you should be asking yourself is more like, oh, was this stuff like was this like vital? Is this like needed to like make One Piece work? Because again, they're already like super like
Well,
you can
I mean,
tell in a lot of
I do think that that is debatable, but at the same time, I also think that the absence of that still ends up leading to what I personally consider to be an inferior version of the story.
yeah, sure. I mean, you can. I
So,
mean, that's fine. If that's your opinion, that's fine. But I think you should like keep in mind that like, oh, this show doesn't have the amazing long runtime. It has to like focus on like all the vital parts to like cram it into this like amount of time they have. Because even then, there
mhm.
are like so many moments in the show where it's like it like can't really like stay onto stuff like the manga can, or like get like focus on stuff like the manga can, just because like yeah, it doesn't just have not have a lot of time. So like in that sense, like yeah, like what that this is a Netflix show which has like 8 episodes and every episode is around like 50 minutes. It makes sense that
Mhm.
they just make this the Buggy episodes because Buggy is vital. You can't just skip over Buggy. He keeps popping up in the
Well,
rest of the
I
show.
wouldn't expect them to. I wouldn't expect like if they skipped over Buggy, that I would be just as mad because Bug, Buggy is an important. Buggy will be the Pirate King. Buggy
Yeah,
is
but
going to be
yeah,
the Pirate
exactly.
King.
Buggy keeps popping up in through the rest of the show. It's like you can't like make like One
Oh,
Piece like
I'd have been
it's
just
like
watching the original series too. Like he's
yeah,
still
like
around even now.
yeah, exactly. And like the people from like Orangetown aren't. Maybe if they're like a bunch of smart
Wait,
people
no,
in
no, 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 no,
Orangetown,
no,
they would.
no. I do not agree with the basis of this because I feel like saying that justifies like a very half-assed approach to all the character arcs in all of the islands. And to be clear, it is the back like it's actually funny because I feel like this is something that a lot of people get into is the story of One Piece the story of the Straw Hats, or is it the story of the people that they meet on their adventures? And I feel like it's sort of like a well, in the pre-time skip it's like both. In the post-time skip it definitely starts leaning more into being about the stories of the people on the islands that they go to because with the exception of I guess like Sanji with like Whole Cake Island, they've basically done everything there is to do with the Straw Hats as characters, which is why they've become incredibly static. But that's a whole other thing. But like,
Hard disagree with
I
that. I think they're just neglecting them, but there's plenty of things to do with
I mean,
them, for the
that's
record.
fair. But I basically disagree with the entire like premise that because these characters are not reoccurring, therefore don't need to feature them because that's like almost all the characters on all the islands. Like what?
I mean, yeah, though, like you don't need to feature them because ultimately, like, as long as you get the thematic purpose across that you wanted to get across, it's okay to change some stuff,
Or
I
to cut
think.
it out if it's not that important for the
But
entire
I
story.
I don't understand the point of adapting an adventure story about going to these islands and meeting all of these people that live on these islands and then cutting out the people, which are like arguably one of the most important parts of like communicating like the different things going on these islands.
I mean, I'd
Like
I'd agree with you if they cut out every island person. That'd be one thing. But it's just this one island. They were short on time. they had to cut something, so they cut these.
And
people.
like, if person comes up to you and it's like, hey, I want to watch One Piece, because the idea that they're like these pirates and they go from island to island and there's this whole like kind of world building going on. Like, yeah, in that case, you should probably direct them to like the manga. Like, yeah, you shouldn't like recommend like the show to them. But if someone is like, hey, I want to watch One Piece, but I don't want to spend all the time. I just want to get like the biggest hits like part of it. Then probably the show is like a better version. Like just because like that part kind of goes away doesn't mean like the show's kind of like useless.
I know I said in our little argument that we had in the chat. I know I said that I would probably never recommend anyone the Netflix version. That was me being a little bit like mad. I probably would, but I would begrudgingly recommend it. Like, it's like that one time when I got into an argument with someone about like Evangelion in the One Piece Discord server when I was still in that piece of shit garbage server. I said, okay, fine. If you have no intention of watching the original series, then you can watch the rebuilds. But like, it's
like, yeah,
you know.
I can totally agree with that. Like, sure, I think that overall, like, even I, with like my limited experience with the One Piece manga, sees quite clearly that like the manga is like better than this. It's like the superior product.
Yeah.
You mentioned like that you kind of found like the moment in like Sanji's like leaving emotional. I found in this show the moment where like Luffy puts on the head on like Nami's head on really emotional. But while watching that, I was like, oh, this moment will probably be way better in the manga.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I agree with that. Like I would also recommend it begrudgingly. But like the thing with One Piece, also,
the way that they handled that particular scene, the of course I will. When Luffy originally said it under his breath, I was like, because again, this was the point where I was like starting to doubt the series. I was like, that better not be all we're fucking getting. And then when he fucking raised his arms and yelled it out, you better believe I was actually like, I was actually fucking hyped.
Yeah, like,
that was great. That was like the best moment in the
If
series.
someone wants to like experience One Piece, I will be like, yeah, just go watch like One Piece, and they're willing to like sacrifice all the like time and whatever. But like, if someone wants like, oh, I want a truncated One Piece, or I want One Piece without like the animation or whatever, then I would like recommend this show, and it will probably be like a pretty good like substitute. Like, unlike something like Ghost in the Shell, whatever, where it's like, yeah, you can watch the Go in the Shell movie, but it's absolutely nothing like the original movie. Like that, yeah. I think there's like a difference between those two.
I think now is a good time to bring up the fact that I actually, the second time I watched this show was with my parents because we are going to a One Piece museum when we go to Japan in 2 weeks. And I was like, well, I want to get them acquainted with One Piece, but also like, I know like my mom doesn't like long like action fights.
Yeah, but Aarlon, I disagree with this completely because there are movie adaptations of the arcs that are more faithful to the anime. There are the East Blue movie, and they are shorter. They're like 45 minutes.
But they have long fights.
They're 45 minutes.
And then also like I wouldn't feel like super comfortable with like the way One Piece draws its wings. And like watching that with my parents, I feel like I'd be kind of uncomfortable. So this is just like a way to let them kind of experience it without having to watch, hours and hours of One Piece. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about the movies. Personally, I mean, I guess I'd need to see them to form an opinion on that.
I mean, those do also cut.
Watching this
those
show,
do also cut content, but they're at least it's closer to the source material. Like it's basically like a slightly abridged.
I don't care. I don't care if it's closer to the source material. All I care is if it's good. And thematically,
if you don't care if it's if you don't care that it's close to the source material, then why does it matter that they actually have like the Going Merry? It could have just been like literally anything. It could have just been any ship. It could have taken place anywhere.
Okay.
It could have been. It could have been any series, and it could have been literally anything, and they just call it One Piece, and all that
if
matters
they
is
came
that it's
up
good.
with just a different ship for no reason that was worse, then yeah, I'd be mad about that.
See, you added something there. You said that was worse. I'm saying if it was good, and there was nothing about it that was even remotely One Piece, except for the fact that it is called One Piece. Of course, the fact that it tries
then we'd watch it because it'd be good.
No, but you said you wanted to acquaint your family to One Piece. So, of course, the fact that it is trying to be like One Piece actually matters to some extent. It obviously matters to some extent.
I care to some extent that it's close, but I don't care about
my point is that the level that most people. My point is that the level that most people care is an incredibly surface level of caring. It's just the aesthetic and the fact that it looks like One Piece. I'm very passionate about this. It is a very surface level investment in One Piece.
Show, I'm sorry, but like this show, it gets all the. I'd say like the biggest thing the show is missing, and this does go to. I will say, my biggest complaint about this show is probably the soundtrack.
Yeah, fair.
It's not a bad soundtrack.
It's just generic.
I'd say it's like.
I thought it was okay.
I'd say it's like a decent Western soundtrack, but what it loses is a lot of the music in One Piece like really captures this sense of wonder about the world, and I think that's a big thing that's lost in the live action adaptation.
I didn't mind the soundtrack too much in this. I just hated the fact that they fucking gave Aarlon a fucking trap beat.
That was so fucking basic. Yeah. That was so hype. No, that was actually such a good choice. It makes Aarlon stand out so much, like, ironically.
That was so cringe. It felt like, I know it probably shouldn't.
He's black.
It probably shouldn't, but it felt so racial. It felt racial.
Well,
and the fact that they were like actually... Right? The fact that they were actually playing rap music at Aarlon Park, like, that is diegetic. There is rap music in this world, and the fishmen, like, do you get it, guys? The fishmen are black. They were enslaved by humans.
Well, like, they also have like an issue with just like Aarlon generally being like black coded.
Like, do you get it, guys? Like, this is, I just feel like this is.
It was just too on the nose, is the thing. Like, the fishmen were always an allegory for...
So, like, if you want to say it's still on the nose, with like, sure, maybe, but I don't think I would start with, like, the rap music. I would start with, like, how Aarlon in every way is, like, presented, right? Like, even how his actor does him is with, like, a very much, like, oh...
Like, oh, what?
like, you know. Oh, we gotta go.
Well, they're trying to make him like are you saying that they're trying to make him have the vibe of like a gangster?
A little bit, yeah. Like, you know, you guys didn't have that?
I can definitely see that a little bit, and you know,
a little bit, like through his entire performance. It's like, oh,
yeah. I don't know. That was.
I will say, I liked that in this, Aarlon didn't break his deal with Nami. That, like, in the original, I was never a huge fan of when he's just like, yeah, I was never going to set you free. Like, yeah, I don't care about being like a fishman of my word. I'm just a dick. And this, he was just like, oh, well, like, I was just playing by your human rules, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was just being Weasley like you guys.
Yeah. I don't know.
I agree, because I definitely prefer... I don't know why, but every time a villain says, I'm a man of my word, I guess I would be as gullible as the protagonist, because I always actually do take them at their word, and I always feel like it's kind of neat if they actually are, but then I get disappointed when they're not. So...
Yeah, I don't know. I like the trap music with Aarlon because it kind of like cements his identity, which like is how he's generally like reconstructed in the show, and it's like a kind of unique thing that's fun. Oh,
I feel like it really stands out because I feel like there's not that many like modern sound. There's not that much like it's all piratey adventure
yeah,
music.
but that's
It
kind of
really,
the point.
I guess I don't know.
Like that's the fun part. That just like they have this one character villain song, which is like straight just like a rap song compared to everything else, which kind of makes them stand out.
I just want to know, would they have done that if Aarlon was played by a white guy? That's all I want to know.
No.
Would they have done that? Would they have done that if Aarlon was played?
Absolutely not.
That's what I mean. If the answer to that question is no, that's what I mean when I say that this feels hella racial. Like
this
is
why I support diversity in my media. Okay, so we can have the fucking villain trap songs. Okay,
bruh.
This is why I stand wokeness. Oh man.
But going back to my parents, like I will say, like, the first time I watched this show, Coco, I was not so far off from you that, like, around halfway through, I started to feel pretty lukewarm on it, and I was like, this is kind of mid. I think we even agreed that it's a 6 out of 10. But rewatching it with my parents, just like getting to vicariously experience witnessing it all and being like seeing the characters, they loved Luffy. I guess it just really warmed me up to the show. That's like, yeah, like even though like yeah, they did change some stuff and like yeah, a lot of stuff I would have liked to see got dropped. They still there's still something there to really enjoy, and a lot of people who otherwise would have never experienced this are getting to experience it on at least some level, right?
I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from because if I were to watch One Piece with my mom, who cannot get into animation literally, so like my mom is like arguably even worse because at least your parents actually watch anime sometimes, right? So the only way I could get my mom to watch One Piece would probably be through something like Flixpiece. And I like watching stuff with my mom. At the same time, I'd be like, well, if I could really have it my way, obviously at the end of the day, I can't really like force my mom to watch something she has no interest in watching. But if I could really have it my way, probably opt for those animated East Blue movies. But I just know that my mom can never get into animation at all. Like,
and you wanting that's like fine, like that's untouchable. But like the mission statement of these kind of shows is to attract people like your mom or Arlen's parent to like watch this, like consume this piece of media, which is otherwise really good. And that's also why I think why they like change around the characters a lot. Also, with like I don't know, like we talked about Zoro, but even like Luffy is like genuinely like a little bit cringe in like the show, which is played off with Les. Well, like in the One Piece like original, he's always supposed to be like embarrass the people around him, but like that thing that like makes him like able to do that is also just like
Luffy definitely has a lot of moments where he himself is the butt of the joke in the original. And incidentally, I do feel like Inaki Godoy. I just feel like Luffy was probably the most. Luffy was arguably the most accurately portrayed character in this whole thing.
He felt really close.
Wait, let me put it like this: Luffy ever like tried to not be cringe and then feel at not being, and then thinks to himself like, "Man, I wish I was less cringe there." Like, does he do that? Because from what I understand, it's like.
Well, I mean, Luffy never has like Luffy doesn't really give a shit about like what other people think. So if he does something stupid, like the concept of embarrassment is completely lost on the original version of Luffy, whereas in this, I mean, he definitely does feel awkward. He definitely does feel a tiny bit embarrassed, like dorky sometimes,
And that sense of like him not having any embarrassment, like in the anime or like in the manga, it's like sure the people around him kind of react to him in a way where it's like, oh, he's being cringy right now, he's embarrassing, he's like whatever, and it kind of turns him off. But like that thing that like allows him to just be embarrassing and not give a shit is also the thing that makes him like the Pirate King, the strongest guy around, the guy who's like gonna like always defeat the villain because his will is so strong. And like that's kind of like lacking in this show, where it's just like, oh, Luffy is just like, yeah, he's just like sometimes just like awkward, and it's like something he's aware of, something the other people are aware of. Like, oh yeah, like the show kind of like the show like explicitly like makes you want to think of Luffy like, oh, he's just kind of like.
Well, I think that might have been like a part of them trying to do that. Like, I feel like even this,
yeah,
for as close as it got, could not escape the urge to be somewhat self-aware. You know, all fighters call out their finishing moves. No, they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's
like you know, I know it's a huge issue a lot of people have with like the MCU when they like acknowledge the goofiness of superhero comics. It's like, oh, come on, we don't really need that.
Exactly. It's like, and that's something that annoys me too about the show. But on the other hand, that's also kind of like the part of like make it more Western in a sense, right? Because like if you just had like Luffy exactly as he is in the anime, it would also be kind of a turn off. And making more like this, having a kind of like self-aware, like cringe humor in it, is something that's gonna click more with like Western audiences and more normies. And yeah, like that's generally how like that's like the point of the show, and that's why it's constructed how it's constructed.
Yeah, and I feel very conflicted about that, because on the one hand, I can be like, okay, well, I can see the utility behind this, because this is definitely a way to like get people who would not have consumed the original version. This is how we can get them to see this version, and this is how we, Shonen Jump, can make more money by making something that appeals to an audience that otherwise,
or like or for someone like Aarlon who like really cares about sharing this thing with his parents, but otherwise he wouldn't be able to do it. Or someone like you who might show this to your mom now if she cares to like watch this.
Well, I mean, I feel like the difference for me is it would be like, I would be like somewhat okay, like, okay, yeah, I got to watch this. Like, for me, it wouldn't be that I got my mom to consume a version of One Piece. For me, it would be the fact that I got to spend time watching something with my mom. Because, like, as far as like One Piece, because you know, I love watching movies with my mom. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
But like, as far as like One Piece itself is concerned, it's like, well, this isn't the version I want her to see. This is an inferior, but like
the closest she will ever get.
Yeah,
because like, your mom is not gonna watch One Piece and like.
But
so
that's what I
mean.
That. That's what I mean when I say that. Like, for me, if I'm watching Flicks Piece with my mom, it has absolutely nothing to do with me wanting my mom to consume a version of One Piece. It has nothing to do with that. Because so. And I get it's different for Aarlon, because Aarlon does want his parents to see a version of One Piece, especially because he's going to be like going to that thing in Japan with his parents. But yeah, I was gonna say like
at least like you maybe you don't care about watching One Flicks with your mom, but at least you have that option now. And, like there are a lot of people like you who have like parents who they like really want to share One Piece with. But they're normie parents who like don't really want to watch an anime, who now also can do that, and that's like the cool thing about a live action adaptation of this.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, sure. If I have like a fellow geeky anime manga fan on or like friends on like Discord or whatever, and they ask to like watch like how they should watch One Piece, I'm also not gonna recommend like One Flicks to them because it's not really made for them.
Well, I mean, I think a weeb can still enjoy this, but I just feel like I would have enjoyed this more if my expectations weren't so high. Which is why I feel like I definitely will enjoy this on a second watch, because at least I actually know what I'm getting. I'm not going to be like, oh, I was expecting this, and now I'm disappointed that it's gone. And that I can just sort of sit through it. That's why I said, oh, it's a nice little like a side thing I can enjoy. I guess it's kind of like the movies, actually, the One Piece movies in general, because a lot of people will say they're like shit, but like I don't know. I watched Film Z. I watched Stampede. In no world would I ever put them. And we watched Film Red. Me and Aarlon. In no world would I ever put them.
Where is Uta?
That is true. Where is God Queen? Where is Uta?
Who's Uta?
Uta is the God Queen of One Piece. Chap 1. She's always been. I can't believe they actually forgot to show Uta in the fucking flashback.
One of the
this is a 0 out of 10. Holy shit.
Of One Piece.
Uta is the fucking girl from One Piece film Red. The supposed childhood friend that Luffy has always had, according to One Piece film Red and the promo
chapter
episode.
with Uta. Like Uta is canon.
They also have flashback episodes. I'm just saying, Oda did draw a chapter featuring Uta, and as we know, if Oda draws it, that makes it canon, which means that all the movies are canon because Oda did the character design for those movies. But yeah, I was saying that I would obviously in no universe would I ever recommend watching the One Piece movies over the original series. But I did enjoy them as a little side thing, and for me, that's kind of where I put, like, personally, that's where I put Netflix One Piece. For me, is like a nice little, but like artistically,
like movies are only made for fans like you, right? Like for One Piece fans who really like One Piece stuff and want more One Piece content. Yeah, but like that's not what one. Yeah, and it's not like what One Flix is made for. It's made for like a normie audiences to capture those people. It's also why Oda really cares about it. Not because he wants to like one-to-one have his vision like replicated, but because there's now an entire audience who might like see a bit of his vision.
No, I was more so just saying, like, for me, like, what space does what like Flix piece like occupy in my mind? Like I sort of put it in the same category as these movies, where it's like it's a little, it's kind of like I put it in like the same boat as the movies or like the Romance Dawn one shots, which are things that I still revisit every now and then,
Understand each other now.
But
yeah.
but this is
I think we understand
where
each
I become this is where I become a bit of a snobbish prick, because I was gonna say that, like, I mean, I can appreciate that, but if it was something that I was in charge of, if I was in Oda's position, I'd be like, well, hold on. I made the version that I made, and like, it appeals to this very specific demographic of people. If an alternate version needs to be made to appeal to like a whole different audience, it just seems to me like my story wasn't made for these people, and therefore they can just go and find another story that is more suited to their taste. But obviously Oda has a different perspective than I do.
I mean,
but I'm just saying, as a I don't want to compare myself to Oda, because obviously I don't compare to Oda. Oda is way better than me. He's like, but as a comic book artist who's making a comic book, if I had something of mine adapted and they were going to cut out a bunch of stuff, especially stuff that I consider to be thematically relevant, I'd be like, no. But
the fact is, it's just
maybe a good point to maybe before we start looping.
It's just so close that like they had to change. Like what we got is so close to One Piece. Like I don't know why you wouldn't want people who wouldn't otherwise experience One Piece to get that experience.
Well, I would just argue that because they're getting a totally different experience.
It's not a totally different experience though. Like
it is. I don't know how much we want to like loop on this, but the directing of the way the actors are directed makes it a totally different experience.
Stupid.
The fact that they hold on. The way the actors are directed makes it a totally different experience. The fact that they omit a lot of content makes it a totally different experience. The fact that they like restrain how expressive and like how emotional the actors are allowed to get at certain points makes it a totally different experience. This is not One Piece. It's something that like very closely resembles One Piece, but the soul has been taken out. It is a pretender.
That is so wrong.
Fooled, Aarlon.
Soul is
you
there.
have been fooled.
You have been fooled.
The soul is not there. It is not there.
This is why I'm telling you.
The soul is not there.
I'm telling you, Coco.
You have been fooled. You have been fooled.
I'm telling you, this is an autism moment. I don't mean this in a
It is an autism moment. It is an autism moment because normies. It is an autism. I wear that with pride because normies do not have as much of an in-depth appreciation for art as
you're
an
hyper fixating on details that don't fundamentally matter.
They do fundamentally matter. They do, and I'm telling you, if you get if people who the types of people who do watch anime, if there's anyone who watches, so not normie people, but someone who watched One Flicks and then they watch the original afterwards, I'm telling you, they will walk away with that with the conclusion that the original is a far superior experience, and the only thing that might deter them from thinking that is the pacing, which is the only thing this has over the original, is the fact that it is faster. That is it. And even then, it's not even really that much better because it's adapting the one part of the anime that actually moves at a decent pace to begin with. So
I'm sorry, you're just so wrong. We literally talked about things that we liked better.
Wait. I was thinking about this. I was thinking of a paradigm, a spectrum, you could say, because those on this podcast. What if on one side you have the Hobbit trilogy, and on the other side you have the Lord of the Rings trilogy, extended cut, blah 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 blah. And I wonder, if you had to put One Piece between those two on a spectrum, on how faithful it is to the original, would you put it more towards the Lord of the Rings side or the Hobbit side?
I haven't read the Harry Potter books, so I can't really make that comparison, but there's a meme that I like where they take the book and then they cut a giant disc-sized hole in the book, in the Harry Potter book. That's what this feels like to me.
I mean, I think Harry Potter is a great comparison because, personally, I do think something.
I mean, a lot of people complain about the fact that stuff has been cut out from the movies too, which is why we're getting a series, and it won't surprise me. And it won't surprise me if the series does actually end up being a much better experience than the movies, because of the fact that they don't have to trim everything down to fit within a movie's runtime.
I'm the Harry Potter fan here, so let me give my thoughts on Harry Potter. Okay. Listen, Harry Potter, yes.
No, I'm British. I'm more of an experienced expert because I'm British.
Yes.
we need a true Harry Potter fan on the podcast. Do we know anyone who's transphobic? Can we give a call?
Bruh.
Yeah, let's get Drax in here.
Listen, I would agree on Harry Potter that something fundamental is lost from the books. For me, one of my favorite things about the books is the meticulousness and the slow getting the inner monologue. And the thing is, though, personally, I just don't think for a movie that's not really something you can adapt, because then you'd have to make it, a 4-hour movie, and it would be boring.
And that's why you don't make it a movie and you make it a series. And now they're greatly don't get me wrong, obviously the Harry Potter movies are beloved. I watched them, I enjoyed them, but I have a feeling that if I had read the books, I would see the series as the incoming series as a great correction of a mistake that was made.
I just don't think.
And in that sense, that is why you don't adapt One Piece into a series that has 8 episodes per season, and instead you go and watch the anime.
Okay, but Harry Potter, right?
The next season is probably gonna have more episodes.
Yeah, they better. I don't know how they'd fit all of.
Alabasta is long as fuck, so if it doesn't have more episodes, that'd be insane.
But the thing is, Coco, I grew up reading Harry Potter, and I grew up with the movies. And yeah, when the movies came out and they cut stuff, I'd get mad about it, and I'd be unhappy with that. But at the same time, getting to enjoy the spectacle of seeing it on the big screen, put to real life, seeing it brought to life, was a wondrous thing, and like I'm glad they exist. And like on top of that, like Harry Potter, I don't think it would be nearly as popular and a cultural phenomenon as it was if not for the movies. Although arguably we could say that was a bad thing, because then J.K. Rowling turned out to be a giant prick. But you know.
Well, yeah, but I was also going to ask: is that important?
Well, yeah. I mean, I want people to
that
experience Harry Potter, and a lot of people got into the books.
Do you want people to experience a version? Well, yeah,
a lot of people
that's
got
one thing
into
that
the books because of the movies, and for the people who didn't, like, that's fine. They got to experience Harry Potter in an albeit mostly inferior fashion, but that's fine.
That is the point. That is a point I will give in favor of Flixpiece, is that unlike, say, the MCU, or pretty much any Marvel adaptation, because I feel like Marvel adaptations just completely fail at getting people into the comics, like 90% of the time. One Piece live action has definitely succeeded in what I think its job is. And its job, and I know that's totally subjective, so it's not even worth arguing about. It has succeeded in getting people to check out the original. I've seen plenty of people talking about it on Bird app. Oh, I'm going to watch the original.
Now.
Oh, I'm reading the, and it's look. No, I'm gonna keep dead naming Twitter. I'm transphobic.
Twitter.com.
True Harry Potter fan has come into the chat.
But yeah, and the one thing I really like about this is the fact that they do have One Piece on Netflix. So there is no excuse anybody watching this. As soon as episode 8 ends, fucking tab over to the fucking search bar, type One Piece in again, and then fucking click episode 1. Fucking the boy named Luffy, or whatever it's fucking called, the first episode, and fucking watch the superior version. Or better yet, go on onepace.com and
I mean, I'll just say this.
Can we no wait, can we please move on?
No,
from this?
Shut up.
Keep arguing.
Shut up. Let me finish. I'm trying to speak. Oh my god.
Yeah, like haven't been talking the whole time. Okay, go ahead, King. Speak your truth.
Fuck off. Okay.
But the last thing, okay. Oh, Coco, you can't respond. Okay, that's the rule.
Shut up.
That's the rule.
Let me make my point.
I'm talking to Coco.
I'm a utilitarian. So, like, I don't have, like, a way, like, I don't care if people are enjoying things the way I want them to. Or, like, I do to an extent. But ultimately, what really matters to me is that people are enjoying the media they consume. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, more people are enjoying One Piece, and more people are enjoying this other thing that, sure, you can argue it's not really One Piece, but it's something. So, like, that's that. It's good. It's good for the world that this exists.
It is definitely a positive for the world in that someone out there has been made happy by its existence. There you go.
Great. Yeah, great.
All right. Words. This is the fucking the next and last question, because the question I had after this.
I will at least ask one more.
I had 2 more questions, but I feel like we kind of went over one of these a little bit. But here's the question: how do you feel about the story adding in a bunch of stuff in hindsight of what happens in the manga? So them foreshadowing hockey.
How did they foreshadow hockey?
They did the close up on Shanks's eye.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah, fair.
That foreshadows Conqueror's hockey.
Yeah, and they like talk about Gene Day.
Yeah, so I mean that's what Oda did, right?
Yeah, To be fair, Jinbei is mentioned in East Blue like once, so that's not like. I mean, it's one time, and it's not in Arlong Park. It's when they're talking about the warlords or whatever. But I'll give that to them. There is because Jinbei was always intended to be part of the Straw Hat crew since like day one. So, and then there's them constantly referring to like Baroque works, which is clearly meant to be a setup for the next season. Crocodile, Transidile.
Transidile. Well, he's gonna turn to a guy next season, right? That's how the lore works in One Piece. That he was first a girl, then he was a guy.
That's a rumor, but
like they could have their first One Piece trans character introduced. Do you think they're just gonna skip over that for just like another woman character? You gotta think about the woke points.
True.
Like
and them playing like Binks Sake in the background, and Zoro fighting Mr. Seven. How do we feel about things like that? Because you'll have some people say, and by some people I just mean Nate, who'll be like, well, this is sort of like painting a different image of One Piece because it gives the impression that these things were always intended from the beginning, which is obviously not the case in the original. It's one of those things where it's like, oh no, this is a concept that was sort of built upon later on. It wasn't always initially intended to be this thing. Like, I think the example that he used especially was referring to them playing Binks Sake, which was actually a reference that I liked. I actually liked the Binks Sake reference. The yo,
I don't remember that. Like stuff like hockey is just like, okay, there's this moment where it kind of shows off the power. It's gonna become relevant later. I don't get why they gave like an entire scene to him killing the Seven guy when the like number stuff doesn't come up whatsoever again. Like at that point, it's like less like foreshadowing and more like setting up something that by the time it becomes relevant again, people have totally forgotten about.
Yeah, because it happens like that's how they introduce Zoro, right? It's him fighting Mr. Seven. That's literally how they introduce him, and then he like arrives.
Really? Yeah.
No, in Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's how they introduce him, is him fighting Mr. Seven, and the Mr. Seven fight in the original happens completely off screen. That's like one thing that Zoro just mentions in passing. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, the reason why I'm like familiar with Baroque works is because they like tried to recruit me." And we don't even know what Mr. Seven looks like except for like a shitty drawing that Oda did in like an SBS, and I'm actually surprised that they actually managed to like take that like 5-second drawing that Oda probably didn't put that much thought into and make an actual design out of it for this live action adaptation.
I actually have an unrelated question about that scene. How did people feel about Zoro just straight up slicing that guy in two?
It was cool.
Like that felt kind of gruesome at the time.
I think Zoro is one of the Straw Hats who like actually kills, right?
Well, it's also just more like the show doesn't really get that violent after that, right? Like some violent things happen, but he like straight up cuts that.
It's good.
Well, there is that.
It lets you know it's not a kid show.
There is that one scene where Mary gets impaled, though. Like with the
I mean, it is most probably the most violent thing that happens to the show. Let me put it like that.
Well, for some people, some people would also argue that cutting people in half doesn't necessarily mean that, because you have like Star Wars where people are getting dismembered all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just like
it's just a way to
kind of lightsaber stuff where it's like, oh,
yeah. No, I didn't mind it too much. I didn't mind it too much.
It's a general thing. It's a general thing in like American shows where it's like, oh, the first episode, if the show has nudity, it'll have like a sex scene in it. If the show is violent, it'll have like one very gory scene in it. Like it's like, I guess with like most like American shows I noticed.
Yeah.
But like it just it always feels silly because it's always like sometimes it feels forced, and sometimes like with this, it's just like this like explicitly like the most like violent thing that probably happens in the show. And it's just like immediately like in the first episode, and it kind of feels like, I don't know.
And then we see him carrying around his head in a bag.
Oh yeah, did you have another question, Coco? Because then I want to ask mine.
Oh no, I was just still on the.
I never
what did you guys
answered
think
that.
of them?
I'd say it's good.
Yeah, what did you guys think?
Sorry.
I think they
Yeah.
improved. They improved on it, right? Like, yes, they changed it from what it originally was, but like, is it a good thing that Oda was just making shit up as he went originally? I wouldn't say so.
I think it's totally fine for a readaptation to like foreshadow things that weren't initially like intended. As long as they don't go like too much with it. Like I don't want to see fucking like as early as Alabasta, Luffy's about to fucking punch a crocodile, and then you see his silhouette in the fucking sun. Like I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that shit. Okay, if they fucking do that, that's like an instant 0 out of 10. But like I don't mind them doing that because like why does a remake have to sort of be like limited to the same like trappings of like the original? Like they or not even necessarily mistakes. It's just like they know everything. So like
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything necessarily like even like a lot of people watching this, like yeah, this is aimed at normies, but a lot of people watching this are also like One Piece fans as well. So it's like, but I do like that they didn't fucking show Ace and Sabo in Luffy's childhood flashbacks. I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if at one point they considered it, but then they were like, well, in the original, it's supposed to be a surprise that Luffy even has a brother. So it's like, just having Ace be in the like they even say he has no family in the flashback. So like having Ace be there would be like kind of weird.
And they also already do with like Garp in the show itself. With like Garp, where it's like you first see the backstory, like first 2 episodes is backstory of Luffy, and you don't see Garp, and then Garp shows up. It's like, oh yeah, he's actually my grandfather, and then it's just like suddenly, like yeah, they're already like adhering to that rule inside like this one.
I don't mind this approach. If anything, it might allow for them to make things a little bit more consistent than it is in the original, because it'll be made like knowing everything that's coming, so it won't have like some of the issues that the source material has, where people can just be like, well, hold on, like yeah, this ended up becoming this, but like it's pretty obvious this was not originally intended to like become what it was. Because some people might argue that Oda engages in a little writing trick that a lot of people do, which is called mystery box writing. And
Wait, what does Oda do that's mystery box writing?
I think the only example I can really think of right now is the Nika shit, but I don't even know if I would necessarily count that as mystery box.
The Will of D.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the hat, the giant hat. And all the
oh yeah, the
shit.
giant hat. Oh god. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the prophecy shit is kind of tied into the Nika shit a little bit. Like the stuff that happens on Fishman Island, that's all tied to like Joy Boy, Destiny, whatever the fuck. And
you guys are saying with that like when he's doing that stuff, he isn't necessarily like working towards like a specific thing he has in mind, and he's just kind of like.
Well, sometimes he does. Sometimes he does write something with a very specific idea of how it's going to go, and then other times it's sort of like I'm going to introduce this concept and sort of build upon it later on, like the like the Skypiea being like for the longest time, Skypiea was basically considered like an arc you can totally skip, which I totally disagree with, by the way, because Skypiea is fucking great. Okay, fucking Eminem is in that shit. Luffy's fighting Eminem. What the fuck? And if they don't get Eminem to fucking act as Eneru in the live action version of Flick's piece, I'm gonna be rioting. I'm gonna fucking go over to Tomorrow Studios and burn that shit down. But in all seriousness,
it's too long, and I hope they don't make it a whole season.
It definitely is. It is a pretty long arc. I won't deny that. But that final fight is so good. Except for the part where he's climbing up the fucking beanstalk. That takes so long, but still. But yeah. No, I didn't like it. I'm actually hoping that this will do a better job than even the manga, because it's just like a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, Gear 5 is a total ass pull," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you guys do realize that Gear 2 is also like a total ass pull, right?" Like, there's no foreshadowing for Gear 2 whatsoever, other than Luffy saying, should I use it here? Should I save it? Like, there's no training arc, there's no nothing. So if we can get something like that from Thic's piece, that'll be a nice little addition. Yeah. So I have no problem with them writing things in hindsight. What was your question, Mr. Thing?
I'm just curious how you guys feel about the production design in the show. Because to me, there's like, I don't know if I've ever seen a show that has like this kind of production behind it, where like everything is tying very closely to like the anime or like manga's designs, to the point where like everything looks like perpetually like super goofy.
It's great. I love it.
It has
I
like
like that.
it has
I
like
like that.
it has like
That's
lazy. It has like lazy town vibes, but if a show was made for like adult people or like mature people.
I hate Nami's wig, but everything else is good.
I
Like,
fucking love how this show looks. This show looks so fucking good.
It's I don't want to even say once it looks good necessarily. Because like like for example, Kuro in like the like Kuro's like outfits is super garish in the Usopp arc. Because I don't know, everything is so clearly like a cosplay thing they're doing, and everything looks so like.
I do hear that I do hear that criticism of this a lot, that it does look like cosplay for some of the characters.
No, it like is because like how do you say it is, like generally in costume design it's like, okay, you have like ID for a costume you want to have, you have like a character who's like played by a certain like actor or whatever, and then you kind of take that idea of like that costume and you make sure it like suits and like fits and like complements the actor. But like in this show, it feels that like however, like physique of like the actors, it was kind of like a second thought to like how they wanted to make sure that like everything looks as closely to the anime as possible.
Look.
That's like a kind of perpetual sense I get
Would,
through like
would
everything.
you say this was like them doing like trying too hard to overcorrect for the failings of previous live action anime adaptations?
I'm not sure. Like I know, like we talked about before, how much the like show like compromises to like kind of like to like play into like a more like Western audience. But like the whole like production design does not have that philosophy whatsoever. There it like feels like it's trying super hard to be like 1-to-1, no matter what, no compromises.
Look, I get where you're coming from on that, but I just want to say, like,
yeah,
if we look at like the opposite side of the spectrum, which is what has dominated like superhero media for the last couple of decades, where it's just like they are so scared of costumes. It's like, yeah, Daredevil, or I guess Daredevil does.
It's actually fun. It's actually funny that you say that, Aarlon, because believe me, there was a time where it was way worse.
Or like Iron
Have you seen the
Fist
fucking X-Men
never
movies?
wears his costume. There's like so.
Oh man, when Electro showed up in No Way Home, and then they teased Spider-Man fans by having his fucking mask like flash on his face for like 5 seconds, and I'm like, no, you fucking pricks, make him wear the costume. What are you doing?
So like, if we're talking about like that side of the spectrum, I'll take like the cosplay look any day of the week. But I do get that, like, yeah, they could have like toned it down and made it look like a little more naturalistic, but still.
Okay. So like, if you had like One Piece, where it's like, it's either this or it's either like a super like stripped down, trying to make, I don't know, fucking One Piece realistic or something.
No, I'm saying
like
it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, if
no,
it did have to be that.
I'm also saying like, I would more prefer this than like toning everything way the fuck down. Like, I agree with that, but I'm just I'm just like more like just like curious about like, is there any other show that like has ever existed that just like looks similar to this, and just like how goofy everything perpetually looks?
Lazy Town.
Because it's also not like yeah, and like that's like a kids show. It's like something like someone like Kuro would like come on screen and he has the most like garish fucking AliExpress cosplay look to him, and you're supposed to like take him like 100% like seriously as like a real villain.
Aarlon, you've seen Netflix Mob, right? A little bit.
I was gonna say exactly, yeah. The Japanese live action shows are all like this, I feel like. Worse even.
Oh, it's actually worse. Have you seen the live action adaptation of Death Note, the Japanese? I mean, it's actually funny because when I look at that was actually an example that I brought up as something that's actually trying. Like, I feel like when the Japanese do live action adaptations of something, I mean, this might just have to do with the fact that they're not trying to westernize it for a Western audience. Because this, live action One Piece was made in America, so there is that. Whereas like a Japanese live action adaptation is probably still going to have all like the goofy and be like as one-to-one as possible, which is part of the reason why I like brought up the live action Japanese Death Note. But then at the same time, even though I brought that up as an example that's better than this, I started to think to myself like, well, actually, if I watched that, would I really be able to take it seriously? like I remember I was watching an example. I was watching a video that was talking about anime dubs, and dubs, the video was talking about how dubs tend to be cringe because it makes it feel more real to you because it's a language you understand, and it makes you realize that anime is it's
because the dubs suck.
Nah, a lot of dubs are actually.
If they were good at acting, it wouldn't be like that.
I've never watched a dub that I consider truly terrible, but that's beside the point. And another example that the video used was like the live action adaptation of Death Note, and it was like, yeah, this stuff is actually pretty fucking weird if you try to bring it into the real world. But also, this is the same guy who also made a video saying Netflix needs to stop doing live action adaptations of anime like a year before this came out, and now all the comments on that video are like, yeah, so I think you need to make a video now that One Piece is out, because clearly you were wrong. And
I mean, with the Death Note thing, Death Note is already pretty grounded. Like, you have the Shinigami guy who's
it takes place in the real world, but the characters, especially Light himself, they have pretty fucking cartoony personalities.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just talking about production design, right?
Yeah.
Just having this tries to one-to-one catch the animes look so directly from 2D to 3D. I just I don't know, it's just it might actually for how much we talked about, I could see this being the turn off to people, but I don't know, maybe I'm not normie build enough to call that concretely.
I wasn't really bothered by that, to be honest.
It definitely did bother me at times where it's oh, okay, we have another goofy ass motherfucking strolling up the scene, and I'm just supposed to take him seriously without a second thought.
Man. This just makes me wonder how they do fucking Whole Cake Island where there's living trees and shit, and it's meant to be this throwback to Alice in Wonderland. Would they keep all that shit, or would they would they, is that when they would finally start being okay, maybe it's time to downplay these things a little bit, because now we're starting to get into the realm of too cartoony that it just won't work. Even
I think we're already past that point. I think we passed that point already.
They kept the snails, so
the snails snails are goofy in a very fun way, and they're aware that they're goofy because they do keep doing fun things with them.
Yeah. Well, as someone stated on X, as someone stated on there, I'm glad.
X, my favorite site.
I'm glad that at no point someone goes, "Yeah, I'm talking into a snail." like this is happening. Yeah, this is what we're doing. Yeah, I'm really glad. But of course, I don't know why people were expecting that sort of MCU tier dialogue, because these characters exist in a world where that's like totally normal. So like, of course.
So it's a snail that communicates over. It's like a snail phone. What's the deal with that?
But like, yeah, like
I didn't get to the point in One Piece where there were snail phones. This actually also took me by surprise. Like, what the fuck are these ugly ass things that they talk into?
transponder snail. But like, yeah, no, I don't know why anyone would expect that, because like, yeah, they live in a world where like this has been these characters' lives this whole time. So at no point are they ever gonna comment. If anything, it would feel even less natural than something like the MCU, or for, because like at least Forspoken, like say what you will about the character's goofy ass reactions, but that is an isekai. So like the character being like, "Oh my god, what the fuck? Did I just do that? Or is that a fucking dragon? Whoa!" Like it makes more sense there. Like it would be even worse if they did that here. Like it's kind of weird that anyone expected that. I don't know.
I mean that maybe not with like stuff like snail, like the snail stuff, or like the snail telephones. But like, I don't know, you could definitely have like a scene where it's like, "Am I talking to a fish man right now? What's going on?" Like you could have if you really wanted to fuck up One Piece, you could do that.
Yeah. And of course, there's the scene that everyone hug in this, which is the all fighters call out their special moves. And I'm just saying, having Zoro be the one who says no, they don't. I was expecting there to be like a gag arc, like a comedy arc, where in the end he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna start doing it, Onigiri." You know,
He might do that in season 2, and ironically, I hope he does.
not why a lot of I mean,
Yeah, I think
this
he
should
will.
Yeah.
this sort of, I feel like this should have been obvious to me, but someone pointed out that the reason why he doesn't call out his attacks is probably because he has the sword in his mouth. So,
Very true.
you know,
Well, he doesn't actually have the sword that often in his mouth.
that's true. All right. Do we have anything else to say about this?
I like Sanji's actor very much. I think like he changed the character a bit in like substantial ways where I feel like, oh, I'm pretty alright with this. I might actually prefer this over the original.
I do. I agree with that. This this version of Sanji is just like way more likable compared to like the original.
Not a creep.
He's not a creep, but he's also like way less of an asshole. Like there's one scene that I like where like Luffy is like, "Oh, when's the fucking fish gonna come?" And like Sanji like chuckles and is like, "Oh, well, you know, these things do take a while." And I feel like if this was manga Sanji, he would have fucking like bonked Luffy on the head and be like, "Be patient, you fucking moron! It'll come when it comes," or something. And you know, seeing Sanji actually be like a chill, cool guy who's like you know, yeah.
Well, one thing I like about the way that I like, so like he's not a creep anymore. But what they've done is just that like they made him actually a very like charming, you know, like flirting in like a very charming way. But they just still like kept in that like no one just like likes him, even though he's like such like a dreamboat. Yeah.
They made him how he is when he's first introduced, because I don't remember him being that much of a pervert when he's first introduced in the original series.
Yeah, fair point. Actually, I don't remember that either.
Yeah, like I feel like that's one of the things that got like turned up to 11, especially once you get to the time skip. And the time skip, Sanji almost died from a nosebleed. Like that actually happened. Like he died from losing that. Like I feel like this version of Sanji would not like fucking almost die from something like that.
I do like the one scene where they're like Nami escapes and everyone is like, and she like hugs like Usopp and like Zoro, and like Sanji's left staring there, like being like, "Where's my hug?" Like they still like seem like pathetic, but like
I like that scene because
it made him charming about it.
It's a good scene because it's funny, but also it also like communicates the fact that Sanji hasn't been part of the crew that long yet compared to the other two, you know.
Yeah.
That's thing. I guess I will give the Orange Town arc credit. They didn't adapt the theme that I think they should have, but I do appreciate that instead of just making it like some arc where things happen, they still try to have a theme and an arc of some sort, and this is mostly about like this is like the turning point in the series. This is when like the crew actually becomes a crew, and this is the scene where Zoro like declares his like admiration for Luffy and recognizes him as his captain, and like Buggy's like, oh, your friends aren't coming for you, they're gonna abandon you just like Shanks did, and then they like come in and save Luffy, and then they like tag the triple team Buggy and they kick his ass as a team. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, they like definitely like change things around for a reason.
Like it wasn't a naked arc devoid of there was something there.
I also really like Mihawk's performance. That guy nailed it. That's like a 1-to-1 translation from like anime to like live action that completely like nails it.
He looks exactly like him in the performance.
Yeah,
too.
I actually like him too.
I really like the scene when he shows Shanks Luffy's bounty. That was pretty good.
I also just like his introduction. Where he just like an all-out scene where he just like destroys like the current he creates by like swiping his sword. It's
the only thing I didn't like was the VFX, and the way the VFX looked there has me a little bit scared for Marineford. But we'll see what happens when we get to Marineford.
That's actually a very fair point, because the CGI in this show definitely like kind of struggled, especially whenever like Luffy does this like gum shit, because they always make sure to like frame him, his face, and like his hands or his arms or his limbs like in 2 different shots, so they don't actually have to like show his like entire like stretchy arm or whatever.
Yeah.
Man, I don't get why people are always bitching about the CG and stuff. Like, it looks fine. It looks fine.
It looks alright. It's just that one scene. That one scene with Mihawk, like that whole scene looks like it was green screen. Like even the environment that he's standing on, I don't think he was like in a real place, and it's quite noticeable. And then like I think another example that kind of stood out to me was like the Sea Beast. It looked pretty good, but at the same time, it didn't look realistic, if that makes sense. Which probably comes down to the fact that they had to make a choice. They had to make a choice between either making it look realistic or having it still have like the design of what the Sea Beast actually looks like in the manga.
Yeah.
Which really makes me wonder what they're gonna do with Laboon when they get to him, when they reach the red line or whatever. Are they gonna have Laboon look just like a real regular ass whale? Or are they gonna cartoonify him a bit like they did with the Sea Beast? Like
they're gonna cartoonify him a bit.
Yeah. I mean I think I would probably prefer that, if I'm being honest. Like even if it's noticeable, I would probably prefer that.
I mean, this show is so fucking like knee deep into its aesthetic already. You better like nails down. And like what Aarlon said, it like I think that like the issue with kind of shows like these, that they're like a TV show or like a Netflix show, so they don't have like a huge amount of like budget for like CGI, but they're also like shows where a lot of like cartoony and like not things you could do with practical effects stuff happens. So I do think it's like noticeable in like how like sometimes the CGI will look a little bit like cheapish or whatever. Like what I said earlier about how they like always make sure to like frame Luffy's arms and then face like in different shots, so they don't have to like animate his like entire stretchy arms.
Yeah, and they'd always do like quick cuts too. They'd never linger on Luffy stretching his
And like they have like moments with like Garp shooting like the cannonball where it's like, oh yeah, this is the money shot. This like really like blows up and sends back. But like they can't do it the whole time, and that's kind of where it starts to like struggle a little bit.
I didn't mind it that much though. Wasn't really a thing that got him.
With how cartoony One Piece is, it's not that bad now.
There was a point that I had, but I completely forgot what it was, which is probably for the best because we're closing in on 3. Okay, I guess we can just quickly we went over this already, but I guess we can just quickly address this last question. What did you think about the overall portrayal of the characters? How did you feel about how the script was written? Were the characters' personalities accurate? How did you feel about how they were directed, etc.? We kind of went over Nami and Zolo, but were there any other characters that
Zolo.
I thought everyone else was good. It was just those two.
Well, didn't you say that you kind of didn't? Well, I guess it's not like it wasn't that big of a problem for you, but like you kind of noticed how they downplayed Usopp's cowardice a little bit.
Well, I mean, I didn't like that they basically cut half of his backstory. But I didn't feel like they were downplaying his cowardice per se.
They made it more realistic.
Not having a voice actor that's like, I don't know about this one, right? Like when it's like a normal black guy instead of that, obviously is not going to seem as scared.
I thought it was fine. He just seems like, in a weird way, he just seems so much cooler than his source material self.
He doesn't have the big ass nose.
Yeah, he doesn't have the big ass. Yeah, that's the greatest sin. No big ass nose. No twirly.
Big ass nose. The truly
no twirly eyebrows.
Yeah, I forgot. That is my number one complaint about this show. Is
I feel like again, I mentioned this to you, Aarlon. I feel like it would have been, if they didn't want to have the nose be there all the time, it would have been a decent compromise to just do the Pinocchio bit and have his nose grow whenever he lies, because he lies a lot. So it would have been nice of them to just do that.
And then this reminds me though, my third complaint is I hate the stupid Netflixification of the camera setup. I hate the stupid blur around the edge of the screen and how everyone's face is right up here in the camera. It's so
face right up to the camera, annoying. Super shallow focus, so everything behind them is blurry. It's like, that's like definitely something where it's like, okay, you have a super cartoony anime like characters and the whole like aesthetic, and then like everything is filmed in such like he's explained. That's definitely like a garish like contrast. I can definitely see like a adaptation of One Piece where they also filmed it in a more like faithful way, or at least one that at least like complements the fact that it's super cartoony more than what they did here.
I was mostly satisfied with the actors' performances in this. There was some I was like, there's Zoro, there's Nami, and, I've mentioned my gripes with their performances. There was Garp, who I felt could have been a bit more Luffy-like, but upon further reflection, I sort of understand the direction that they were going with his character in this. He's kind of like an antagonistic force in the story, so they kind of want to make him like a bit more intimidating, I guess. So I can sort of get that. And it's not like he's totally devoid of like the more bizarre aspects of his character. Those are still present. His reaction to Luffy bouncing back that cannonball, that felt pretty Garp to me. He's proud of Luffy in that I don't necessarily approve, but I'm still proud kind of way, and he's laughing his ass off. Or like that scene where he's like destroying his desk because he's really pissed off or whatever, and he's maniacally laughing. That those were some Garpy moments to me, But
certified Garp.
Yeah. So for the most part, it was okay.
Hey, I think that my biggest complaint generally with like the show is that they kind of feel that like I feel that like Oda's writing is very strong in the sense that he makes very strong like characters, as in they have like a very like Oda. I feel a very like large strength of Oda is like how he makes characters like a very strong like the thing that like makes them interesting, or like a very clear like motivation or like goal. It's like, the main thing that they're about, and what they're about is like they are about. But like I feel that's kind of like weakened with a lot of the writing in the Netflix show, because it's just like, I guess it will be like too like anime to like have that in. And I definitely with stuff like, for example, with like Kuro, where it's like I feel that's like a very large strength of Kuro in like the manga is the fact that he's this kind of like, that he planned so much like forward, right? Like they even make like a point that the reason that he like pushes up like his glasses with his palm is just because he doesn't want to like, he still treats his fingers like bladed weapons, to just never lose his like killer edge throughout all the years that he's been like surfing that lady.
Well, that's still
It's still there a little bit, but like,
do they ever mention?
I like that they didn't say like, oh, that's
It's not-
why. They just let you.
It's not necessarily, it's not
infer that.
necessarily like, oh, that specific moment had to be there. But I feel that kind of like main things of like Kuro in like the manga, where it's like, oh, he's this kind of like super like evil person who's been surfing this lady this whole time, while actually he's been thinking about killing her like the entire time. Like that's kind of like what.
I really didn't like how they gave away so early in the game that they were planning to kill
and like
her.
in this show, like that bit is still there. But like Kuro's character, just like, oh, he's like the butler, but oh, he's not really the butler. He's now planning to kill her, and now he's gonna kill her. Like, it's, and then he goes into the whole like slasher, like he's a slasher in a horror movie mode. Like, I feel that's a way more generic take on like that character than that you see in like the manga. And I feel that's something you see in like with like a lot of the like characters in like Netflix compared to like the characters in like One Piece, where I feel that like. Yeah, like that very strong part about them gets like watered down, and I feel it kind of brings out a more like generic product in like most of the time. That's my TED talk.
I was actually going to ask, did they ever mention Kuro's like motivation for like pursuing a peaceful life at all in this?
No,
What was his motivation?
I guess they don't bring it up. He just wants to get all the wealth. I guess that's it.
Yeah.
What? Well, what? Wait, what are you saying? What was his motivation?
No, I was saying his motivation in the original, like, I just want a peaceful life away from all this pirating. I'm done.
No, he absolutely talks about that. There's like the whole scene where he's like, you have no idea what it's like to like have a target on your back and like constantly, even, I never failed a raid, but even then, like my whole life was just like running from the law.
But was it to like talk about him like killing like the lady person to like her money, or was it just like, oh, this I'm such a bad guy and I'm gonna kill you now? Like, I don't.
I feel I guess it does function in fulfilling the idea that he definitely does not love that life, and he's trying to get away from it.
Yeah, Luffy's response to that is that he's like, yeah, you gave up on your dream, so like I have no respect for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, it kind of is there, but like the whole emphasis is like kind of different. That would be like my main thing.
In fact, they arguably do a better job than just having him say, yeah, I want a peaceful life and I want to walk away from this pirating business. Instead, it's him saying,
yeah,
being a pirate kind of sucks. And Luffy's like, no, you're just not built like that.
Yeah. I guess that's not like the most important part of his like character or whatever. Like, but like, yeah, again, it's like just like a general thing I see with like the show, where it kind of feels like everything is like watered down.
Is that all we have to say?
Yeah, I didn't really get that. I mean, in some places I got it, but whatever.
Closing thoughts, if we haven't gotten into those already.
Yeah.
It was good, and I'm hyped for season 2.
It was okay, and I'm not sure I'm gonna watch season 2. Maybe I will pick up the manga or whatever again. Probably not, because this shit is way too long.
I thought it was okay, and I'm definitely gonna watch season 2, if anything, just to see if they actually are gonna do Transdial. But
so
also
real.
because I have a lot of free time on my hands, and I will consume anything and everything One Piece. I'm literally playing World Seeker right now, even though people insist that all the One Piece games are mid. But in my in my quest to consume what is currently one of my hyperfixations right now, which is One Piece, I would probably end up watching season 2. Unless One Piece stops being one of my hyper.
I suspect it's gonna grow on you, assuming it doesn't get worse.
Well, I have a feeling that season 2 will probably be better, because here's the thing. Well, better for me. Because here's the thing. I have consumed East Blue like a fuck ton of times. Like, so many times. I've watched it in the anime 3 times, if you count Four Piece. And then I've read it in the manga like, I don't know, like fucking 5 times. So, like, my attachment to East Blue is like way stronger than it is to like basically any other saga in the One Piece series. So basically what I'm getting at is I feel like it's basically impossible to like disappoint me as much with any of the other arcs.
I mean, they're gonna cover way more ground in way less time in the next season, so I'm not so sure about that.
I guess it's just a matter of waiting.
Well, we have no idea what they're gonna do.
It's just a matter of waiting and seeing. But I don't think they will fumble the way I feel like they did here, which really just comes down to the fact that I don't have as much of an attention. I mean, that's not to say I don't like other arcs. Like, for example, a lot of people are speculating that they might just straight up cut Whiskey Peak, which to me would be. I mean, I can see why they would do that, but to begin with, that's when the arc, like the Alabaster arc, fucking actually starts. And then it also has one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, which is Zoro 1v100ing fucking like 100 Baroque works, and like the fucking like speech that he gives where he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill all of you by myself. Like, if they cut that, that would be a little bit like, oh, okay, that was. I don't know how I feel about you guys cutting that. That's a bit like.
I guess we don't know exactly what they will cover, but like chances are high they will like cut out substantial stuff. I don't think they will be able to like the pace they had in like the first season.
I know a lot of people are expecting them to cut Little Garden, which they shouldn't, because it's pretty important to Usopp's character. You know, Elbaf, the Giants, etc.
Well, they're already fucking his character. Might as well fuck it a little bit more.
If someone's gonna get the short stick, might as well be you. So, and I'm curious. I'm actually curious that they'll introduce Chopper.
Okay, you know what? Let me put it this way. Let's say, because I'm actually starting to realize that there might actually be a lot of things that I am kind of expect or would like to be there. But you know what? Now that I'm fully aware of the fact that there are things that are just going to be put on the chopping block. I mean, I guess I was always aware of that. It's just a matter of like what will be cut. It's just a matter of hoping that the things that I do like don't get cut. But like, for example, yeah, I would like Whiskey Peak to be there. They probably will cut that. Little Garden, yeah, it's an arc that's pretty important to Usopp's character, but it was also one of the arcs where I really started to feel the fucking pacing when they were fucking stuck in that wax statue for like half an hour. So, you know, it's one of those things. There's things I can live without there, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. Overall, season 1, I give like a 6 out of 10. It will probably definitely be way more enjoyable on my second watch, which I do plan to do with the Japanese audio, because I watched this in English. Actually, Aarlon, you watched this in Japanese, right? The first time?
I kind of alternated. I kind of like switched between Japanese and English throughout, and then on second watch it was English.
Interesting.
How good was the Japanese performance? I watched like half of episode 1 in Japanese.
I mean, it was good. It was better than the English performance, I'd say. But
I know some people said that like.
I mean, I liked both.
I know some people said that Mayumi Tanaka, that's Luffy, right? I know a lot of people said that she did like tone down her performance a little bit to make it fit with the realism, which makes sense, you know? I don't expect them to like voice these characters as much as they do, like the way that they do in the anime, especially since, again, in the show itself, the characters don't even have the kind of range that would even allow them to do that. But I heard it was solid.
Yeah, I still prefer the English though. It just fits better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they were as good as ever.
And that was the first time I ever watched One Piece, a version of One Piece in Japanese. Because the only thing I've ever watched in Japanese is the fucking movies, because they don't dub those for some reason. But yeah. Okay, I guess we're wrapping up now. So we're going to shoutouts. Aarlon, where can people find you?
I have a TikTok where I'm reviewing 100 system manhwa. It is Aarlon with 2 N's, Aarlonn.
And Mr. Thicc, you said you're away from yourself, right?
You can find me living in your walls. But if you wanna see some cool content on the internet, I am helping someone with like an art account where they post art, and if they get a commission, I get money. So I'm just gonna do that for the shout out. If you want to look at some cool art, some cool furry art, yes, we do furry art. Then Zazizi, SAZZZI again, ZZY, or like Y, yeah, like the fucked up I. On Twitter and DeviantArt, check it out, and on Instagram, I think. Check it out.
The link will be in the description, so you can just send that to me.
Yes, I will do that.
As for me, you can find me at Tamika Draws on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube at British Lassie, although I barely post on there because editing videos on a shit laptop is a bitch. But yeah, you can also find me on Instagram at Tammy Likes to Draw, etc. And DeviantArt as Amazing Artist Red. But yeah, this has been the Social Discharge, talking about One Piece live action. Hope you enjoyed. Tell us what you thought. Everybody bully Aarlon for daring to believe that this is a decent substitute for the original series in the comments. Everybody say goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
This is the end. Okay, where exactly am I? Oh great, there's this song. Oh good. There's still some things that are still unresolved here, guys. How do I get here? What do I eat? Was Ray my mom, or a clone, or was this all in my mind? What's an Ava? Is that some sort of Freudian thing, or am I real? Hell, does the bus run through here? I mean, I'd like to go home now, but oh god, where's home? Okay. I mustn't run away. Okay, I got that. I got that. Good. Okay. Now, if I were to run away, let's analyze that. Where the fuck would I go? I'm on a big blue ball. Is this how you end a series? I mean, is this where we go from here? Okay, the movie better sure as hell make up for this. I'm telling you right now, because I'm stuck in nowhere land. You ran out of ink too, didn't you bastards?